Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 421 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again. And hopefully, we have smooth sailing tonight.
And hopefully we have smooth sailing. Of course, I want to apologize again for the internet connectivity issues that we were having last night. It appears that hopefully, knock on wood, we've been able to fix those problems today, and hopefully we won't be having any internet connectivity issues once more. And so, with that, we're going to be jumping right into the news. We don't really have much to discuss before the news today, so we're going to be heading straight into Belgorod and straight into what the thumbnail and title was about today, as the Russians have pulled one of the largest blunders we have ever seen them pull off, and it was such a bad one that they had to publicly come out and announce the blunder and take the blame for it right off the bat. As many of y'all know, Belgorod has been a city on the Ukrainian-Russian border that has had a lot of attention focused on it over the course of this war. Belgorod was once at a time where the largest amount of Russian forces were basing for an offensive crossing the Ukrainian border and racing towards the city of Kharkiv, just about another 20 miles away from the Russian-Ukrainian border. Of course, that offensive failed in its entirety around June or July of last year. Crazy to think we're almost getting to the year's anniversary of that offensive failing last year, but Belgorod has still stayed a very important town near the front lines or near the border of Ukraine, as Russian forces continuously are passing through, and a large amount of the Russian logistics and logistics chains that are operating here in the northeastern part of the front line do eventually pass either through Voronezh or Belgorod on their way from the north to the south. Belgorod, therefore, is a very important thing to the Russian military and to the Russian government as a whole, and it is very hard to mistake the city of Belgorod to be Kharkiv. One, they're about 50 to 60 miles away from each other, and two, Kharkiv is far larger than Belgorod. Not only that, they are on two totally different GPS coordinates. Any part of these cities, obviously, will be on different coordinates, yet somehow, last night, a Russian Su-34 bomber, which I'll show y'all a picture of right here to remind everyone what one of these look like. The Su-34 is a modified Su-27 fighter aircraft that has been converted into being a multi-role frontline bomber, much like the one we see here in this picture. With two pilots, one being the pilot and the other one being a co-pilot slash navigator, the goal of an Su-34 is to conduct frontline bombing operations. Usually, the doctrine states that it should be in support of frontline forces or helping out a frontline situation, hence the name the frontline bomber, instead of a medium bomber or a strategic bomber. Yet this one appears to have gone on a special mission, most likely to try and bomb the city of Kharkiv itself. But of course, the Russians and all of their incompetence, and that speaks for itself that the pilots were Russian and the aircraft was Russian, mistook Kharkiv for Belgorod and ended up dropping a Fab 500, which is a 500 kilogram or about an 800-pound bomb, into the middle of Belgorod, where it then exploded. And we actually have a video of that bomb falling into the middle of the city and exploding right here. And so here's the clip. You can't really see it all that well from this little video, but you can see a little bit of the explosion over here at the upper part of the screen. You hear the bomb coming in. Jeez. Quite loud. We can already see car alarms going off. Actually, I'm sorry, correction. I don't think that was the bomb. I actually think that was the Su-34 that just flew over right there. Let's hear that again. That is definitely the Su-34 that dropped the bomb right there, flying over the camera. So the car alarms are going off. And the bomb has not exploded yet. We can see a decent amount of road traffic on the highway, although it is pretty late at night, and we can see the explosion of the Fab 500 right over there. Now it's set off every car alarm in this parking lot, and chaos is erupting in the city of Belgorod, as nobody really knows at this moment when this video is being taken who dropped that bomb, where it came from, or what it even really was. As far as the Russian city government of Belgorod was concerned, this may have been a Ukrainian missile attack that landed right in the middle of the city. But the Russian Ministry of Defense, just about an hour or two after this attack, came out and publicly stated that it was one of their own Su-34 bombers, like you heard in the video flying overhead, that dropped the Fab 500 bomb, and it landed right in the middle of the town. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the bomb was supposedly a glide bomb, which is, from what I understand, an untrue statement. Fab 500s are not glide bombs, they are simply dumb bombs. And I'll try and pull up a picture of a Fab 500 here. This is the Fab 500. That's actually a picture of one in its entirety. From what we understand, no Fab 500 is guided, or a glide bomb for that matter. Unless if you call falling from the plane and straight down to the ground a glide bomb, this is not by any means a glide bomb. So this Su-34 crew didn't sit there and misinput the coordinates in this glide bomb just for some reason landed 50 miles short, and instead of landing in the middle of Kharkiv, it landed in Belgorod. The pilots sighted out the specific spot in the town and dropped this dumb bomb right into it. Now, if this isn't opening up the Russian public's eyes to anything, it should be opening up their minds to the idea that whenever the Russians are bombing places, these pilots really have no idea what they're even dropping a bomb on. Hell, they didn't even know they were dropping the bomb on Russia. They thought they were dropping it in Kharkiv. They dropped it in the middle of Belgorod, and from where the bomb landed, and there's actually a picture of a part of the crater in the thumbnail. The thumbnail is actually a part of that crater. From what we can tell, the damage was actually pretty significant. We heard that cars were actually flung up out of the area and onto a supermarket roof, I believe, just maybe like a couple of 100 feet away. We don't know if anyone's been killed at this moment, but this bomb landed in the middle of a residential area, in the middle of a Russian town. Now, I hope y'all see where I'm going with this, because the point is, the bomb landed. The Russians didn't know what they were going for. They're estimating. And the Russians are always saying, on the propaganda end, the Russian government is always saying that their pilots know exactly where they're dropping their bombs, and they're always landing on strategic targets. Yet this aircraft did not know where it was dropping the bomb, dropped it on a Russian town, and not only in any part of a Russian town, right in the middle of a residential area. Of course, once again...
Well, look, man. Look, when you're Russian, you really don't have time for stalling at all. Just go ahead and drop the bomb on your own people and be done with it.
Yeah, apparently so. And what's crazier is that the Su-34 has a navigator, and the navigator sat there and said, "Oh yeah, this is Kharkiv," and they dropped the bomb 50 miles away, nearly in Belgorod. That's probably the craziest part of this whole deal, is that there actually was a second person in that aircraft that had the job of confirming where their target was, and he screwed up by 50 miles. But nonetheless, moving on into the next.
That seems like almost it's too incompetent to be a screw up. Is it possible that somebody went rogue?
It's highly unlikely, because they didn't go rogue and then fly to Ukraine. They dropped the bomb, and from what we understand, they've returned to their airfield. So from what they understood, they completed their sortie, and they didn't probably realize it until after they landed, and maybe an hour or two later, that instead of completing their sortie, they just dropped a bomb in the middle of a Russian town. So, speaking of which, we can see the damage that it caused to this apartment here. But this is just insane. And we can still see dust and particulates flying through the air, because the bomb just landed moments ago after this video, well, before this video was made. And of course, it is unbelievable to think we've seen probably the largest Russian blunder of the war. Well, actually, there's been a lot of large Russian blunders. Where do we even begin? The Moskva is probably the biggest one in terms of monetary costs, but in terms of the embarrassment of the Russian government's cost, this has to be the most expensive, expensive embarrassment in terms of their reputation that we've seen in a long time. In fact, probably over the course of the war, because unlike the Moscow, where they said it was an accident that caused the ship to catch on fire, or someone was smoking a cigarette or something like that, or the Kerch Bridge being taken down, which was also attributed to a terrorist attack by the Russian government, this one was so bad and so clearly some form of incompetence that the Russian government had to come out immediately afterwards and state that they have bombed their own people, and the entire thing was an accident on their end. Imagine, Matthew, the U.S. federal government having to come out and say that a U.S. Air Force pilot was supposed to be dropping a bomb on, say, Cuba, and they ended up dropping a bomb in the middle of Miami. Like, imagine the kind of embarrassment that would cause for the U.S. government.
Yeah, it would be nuts. And I'm kind of shocked that they still acknowledged it. I thought they would try to cover it up. But, the damage was so severe and so many people saw it, they probably had to go ahead and preempt it by admitting to it. But it's just wild to me that they dropped such a large bomb on literally their own people so far away from their target. It seems unbelievable.
It is, and what's crazy is that this is the largest bomb that the Russians can actually mount on these frontline bombers. I mean, it wasn't a small bomb by any means. A Fab 500 is getting on up towards being nearly a 1,000-pound bomb. and it was dropped in the middle of the city, in the middle of some apartment buildings. That's the craziest part about it. And I don't really know how, and of course I know how, because the Russians don't really have much of a mental conscience, how they're going to sit here from this point forward and say, oh, our Russian pilots know that there are no civilians below them when they're dropping these bombs, and they're only dropping them on the Ukrainian armed forces and on industrial areas that are of strategic importance. And that would be an absolute lie at this point, because the people of Belgorod just saw that they're dropping this bomb in the middle of a residential area, and they don't even know they're dropping it in a Russian town. And so, with that,
And you know what I saw? I saw one of them say it was an emergency munitions dump, as if maybe it was going to go off in the aircraft or something. That is complete bull. Like, there's no way that's got to be the real explanation. Why would you launch it in the middle of a residential area?
Well, that's not a good explanation at all either, because then that means the Russian Air Force would rather sacrifice its citizens and have them killed by a stray bomb than to let the pilots try and heroically fly away from the city and then let the bomb blow up on the plane. That still doesn't paint a good picture for them whatsoever. In fact, it makes the Russians look like they would rather kill the citizens than end up killing themselves in the military or the government. So that's still not a good look. Even if that was the real story, that's a terrible look. Anyways, we're going to be moving on from Belgorod and on into Voronezh. These two markers, I'll go ahead and say, are completely off mark. They're not anywhere in the they're not anywhere where they're supposed to be, suffice it to say. I put them here, however, to make sure that we would not miss them. But we saw in one of these markers a hideous, ungodly creation of a Russian citizen. Now, when the Ukrainians make things, it's usually improvised and it has kind of a good aesthetic to it, so it isn't that bad. And on top of that, no one said the Ukrainians were the second best army in the world. However, some Russian guy called let's see, he lives in the town of Veliki Ustyug in the Voldoga Oblast of Russia. He's constructed an armored car. I guess that's him sitting up there. And this has to be the ugliest armored car I've ever seen, and I don't even know what the armor is really going to be doing, because it appears to be maybe like 15 millimeters of steel, which won't even stop a 50 caliber bullet from passing through. So all he did was weigh the vehicle down, make it heavier where it probably won't be able to travel over muddy roads, and then also just made it so much more uglier. This thing is hideous, and it also is lopsided. It's leaning to the right in the picture.
Yeah, they're not perfectionists, without a doubt.
Not at all. And also, what the hell's up with the headlight, armor slats? Like, what are they going to do? Oh, we're in a firefight. Quick, Vadim, get out and protect the headlights. Like, what, what the hell? Anyways, this is garbage. And I had to show this to y'all because, you know, the Ukrainians have been doing things like this, not to this level and this hideousness, for a good while, like making the improvised go-karts and things like that, which are good for them, considering that they are a, I guess you could say, equipment-strapped country. Obviously, they weren't trying to pride themselves on being the second-best military at the start of the war, but it is pitiful to see that the Russians are in such a bad spot that they're now bringing horses from Tanatuva, and now they're taking this ugly thing, and they're moving it to the front lines as well. And then on top of that, the people who are being transported to the front lines of this thing are draft dodging. The war's gotten so bad, people are actively dodging the draft inside of Russia, or the mobilization as it's called. And this woman, this wife of a man, actually turned her husband in, and this is what she got in return. So here's the video clip, and it gets better than here. It gets better from here. So I'll read off the subtitles. My husband was voluntarily mobilized on January 24th of 2023. The local authorities of the Urup region promised to help me and bring me firewood. Instead, they brought me two tickets to the circus. So she got conscripted too? Lag?
Hello?
That's a lag? I was sitting there like, uh-oh. You good?
Yeah.
Well, you know, did she just get conscripted too? She got two tickets
I
to
don't
the
know.
circus.
You're supposed to have that answer.
Well, I mean, like, it was a joke with a punchline and everything. Well, I guess that one landed short. You know, two tickets to the circus, Russian army's a circus. Did she just get, you know, anyways.
Oh, dang, man. That
joke,
was a deep one. I didn't even get that.
Yeah, that joke just landed flat. That joke landed worse than that Fab 500 did in the middle of Belgorod. Anyways, it is very interesting to see that this woman would rat her husband out for some firewood. Like, did anyone pick up on that originally? The local authorities promised to help me and bring me firewood. So she ratted out her husband and possibly got him sent into a war where he will be killed so she can get some firewood. That's probably dirt cheap. That's kind of sad. That's kind of sad to think that this relationship had so little going for it. She would exchange her husband for some firewood. I'm sure this will become some kind of a Russian folktale in the future, like Father Frost or something like that, but dang, I mean, goodness. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip. Once again, not really a good sight to see in Russia whatsoever. And speaking of which, many of y'all, while I have that terrible voice crack right there, may remember what happened in St. Petersburg a few weeks ago, where a Russian propagandist got a statuette, and then the statuette blew up on him. I guess you could say that it was a very divisive and explosive image of the guy that the bust was for. After he passed away, well, quite violently, really, from the rapid explosion of the device, a large monument was laid out in front of this the spot where he died. It appears that the Russian government has decided that it's time for people to just move on, and they had a janitor go by and clean up the entire thing and then throw it in trash bags. And so we can see that right here.
That's right where it belongs. They do have nice buildings, though.
And, you know, that's only for the central parts of the city, though. But look at that. And so with that's the end of the clip, but you can see right there how much the Russians really care about their great patriots who are helping to push the cause forward. If you get killed in the line of being a Russian patriot, you'll have maybe like 30 minutes to cry about it, and then they'll be throwing everything about you in a trash bag and moving on. Kind of a little sad when you think about it. That guy that got blown up in St. Petersburg was probably one of Putin's biggest fans, and he gets killed, you know, by a bomblet that was from the Freedom of Russia Legion. And then the Russians sit there and make sure that there's really not that much of a public monument to the guy or anything that will last for long. And so when you really think about that, it's like, I don't know. There's a lot of misguided people out there, a lot of them, especially in Russia. But what's the point of supporting a government that doesn't really care about you, even when you're a very prominent figure in the public's eye supporting the war, and then you get killed and they don't even allow people to make a monument to you at least for a short while? Why in the world would anyone support a government like that? Because
that should clue in the Russians to know that you shouldn't support Putin because he'll turn on you in a heartbeat.
But the sad thing is, they'll keep on. They'll just
of course,
keep on.
Of course.
But with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip in St. Petersburg, once again showing how sad the Russian government is that they would do something like that. And now, it is time for us to move on down into the Chernihiv region in northern Ukraine. Chernihiv has not really been covered at all ever since about over a year ago, when the Battle of Chernihiv was going on very strongly at the time, as Ukrainian garrisons in the area were all pulling together to try and defend the town and make sure that the Russians did not take it, and then have an unopposed, I guess you could say, push on down towards Kyiv from the eastern direction. Those forces would succeed and hold the Russians back, but once again, while the Russians are no longer physically in northern Ukraine, their presence is still felt, as Shaheds usually take this area as a flight path from Belarus and also Russia towards Kyiv or other quote-unquote strategic sites that the Russians call around the area. And so in our first clip, we can see that the border guards shut down a Shahed today. We can see a picture of its remains right here. We can see some of them are a little rusty. And we can also see them pointing out a little hole at the front of the Shahed. I don't really know. Oh, that's a bullet hole. I was like, I don't know what that is for, but it's a bullet hole. It's for nothing. It's for just shooting the plane down. But still great to see that they were able to get the thing and shoot it down before it made it too far. We can also see them walking through the remains of the Shahed right here as well. I'm gonna have to mute that. And we can see them showing off the destroyed parts of the Shahed. And with that, That's the end of the clip, but very good to see that somehow a Ukrainian unit, using really only their rifles alone, were able to shoot down the Shahed and take it down somewhere in the forest near the Chernihiv city area. With that, we're now going to be moving on from Chernihiv and on into Kyiv, where we actually saw that the NATO General Secretary, Stoltenberg, arrived today and has once again visited the city. This time, we did not see that the Russians conducted a missile attack at the same time. The event was overall a quiet one, but we also saw that he visited the Wall of Lost Soldiers, and we can also see the Ukrainian Honor Guard at this area meeting him, and of course, paying tribute to the Wall of Lost Soldiers. It's a very sad thing to see, considering that this wall only shows a small part of all of the soldiers that have been lost so far in the war in the defense of Ukraine. And also, it is good to see that the NATO General Secretary has once again arrived to Ukraine to show that NATO does back up Ukraine and continues to support them while they try and push the Russians out of the country. We're now going to be moving on from the Kyiv news and on into our location unknown news as well, where we saw in our first clip today that an Oerlikon Skynex has actually been added to the list on the German government's website of vehicles that will be sent to Ukraine. Many of y'all may remember this thing because we watched a video on this a good while ago, maybe about a month or two ago, showing this system in action. What this is a anti-aircraft gun mounted onto the back of a truck, and the shells that this thing fires actually explode. They have a proximity fuse in them, and so they explode when they get near the target, but instead of just throwing shrapnel randomly in every direction, it actually fires out small little shraplets, I guess we could call them, that kind of rotate in a circle around the projectile and end up mincing anything that comes in its path. It appears that out of all of the anti-aircraft systems, or the surface-to-air missile systems that the Germans will be providing under the to be delivered section, only one Oerlikon Skynex will be provided. But that is still something, because there's not a large amount of Oerlikon Skynexes, or any of these kinds of systems out there for that matter at all. And so even just a single one of them is still quite impressive. And it's a very good looking system as well. The turret on the back of this thing is phenomenal. And also the truck isn't that bad looking either.
Man. That whole thing, like, I will have to say, if it was between this thing or a Max Pro, I know they're kind of like apples and oranges, but this thing looks so much cooler, I gotta admit. The truck, I'm loving it.
Man, I really like the whole thing. It's a very interesting weapon system as well. It's a very effective one, at least at closer ranges, and it still is also on a very nice-looking truck, and it has a very nice turret. As far as aesthetics go, it's winning the competition. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that bit of location unknown news, and on into the next one where we saw the Russians coming out in the springtime and enjoying the nice open air. When you see the Russians right here, soaking in the nice open air of the spring. The vegetation is not blooming because it's been shelled into oblivion, and we can see the bomblet on its way, and it lands right in front of the trench. Of course, the Russians climbing out of their trench and right into the bomblet's path, and it appears that this guy is rolling back into the trench, and this guy's just kind of chilling. Anyone order 2 Russians cold? But with that, that's the end of the video, and it appears that these Russians ended up enjoying themselves in the springtime air a little bit too much. I guess you could say it was something to die for. With that, we're going to be moving on.
It's a little chilly.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I opened up the window for some nice warm air, and then a bomblet came through. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I got shrapnel in my lungs. Oh, man. But anyways, moving on to our next clip, we can see a remote demining system in use. This one was actually provided by the United States. And we can see it right here. Of course, we're going to have to mute the music. But we can see the system right here. We can now see it setting itself up. And we can now see it firing its charge into the air. Seeing it landing, and it will explode. In 3, 2, 1, 0. Well, it's not exploding yet. I was hoping I'd be right there. It's not exploding yet. I took a gamble and it did not pay off.
I think it's taking a minute.
It's taking a hot minute. Right now, this is giving the Russians a good minute if they were there to realize that they're screwed.
Damn.
And now we can see the charge going off. Now,
that went off in fine fashion when it finally did.
Oh, it was fine. It was fine, let me tell you. But the reason for the demining systems to always have such large explosive charges is that these explosive charges are supposed to be large enough to either detonate the mines that would be in that area or to fling them out of the way. And a large amount of explosive force would be needed to do either of those, and that's why these demining systems always make massive plumes and are also just massive explosions overall. But very interesting to see that in M58 Mick Lick, I think that's what it's described as when Mickey Mouse pulls a Harvey Weinstein. I believe it is called a Mick Lick, and we can see it right here in action. Very interesting to see, and I gotta say, keep it up. Well, not the whole Mick Lick part, but the demining part, keep that up. With that, we're going to be moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, where you can see the initiation of a Ukrainian soldier into a mortar unit. And so, of course, the date and location are unknown, and the music just busted out my eardrums. I'm sorry if it did that to you all as well, but here's the clip.
The Ukrainians are greatly into rituals, and we can see the new introduction to the herd being put onto the mortar. We can see him resting his crotch onto the actual tube. We can also see him resting his feet on the back plate as the Ukrainians get ready to introduce a new one to the herd. We can now see them hanging the charge, dropping it, and we can now see that this Ukrainian will no longer be able to bear children. An important part of becoming a part of the Warriors group. We can now see them looking back at the cameraman, now realizing that their experiences have been documented for all time, and we can also see a massive amount of rounds over here, and another soldier who will no longer be able to bear children. We can see right there the pain in the slow motion replay as it jiggles, and it hurts. It does hurt. But we can see further downrange the mortar rounds hitting in the future. And unfortunately, this brave warrior will no longer be able to bear children.
And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But very interesting to see the Ukrainians I guess you could say inducting new members to their mortar units or their mortar squads. Fairly interesting. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little bit of location unknown news, and it's also a date unknown. I'm assuming that this may have actually been about 2 months ago, considering that there's not a lot of foliage on the deciduous trees. There's, of course, green on the evergreens, no foliage on the deciduous. Got to get all nerdy there about my trees, but it looks like it was taken a couple of months ago. Still, we never saw it before, and so it was pretty cool to see. Moving on to our next bit of location unknown news, we also saw a Stugna team hitting an SPG-9. It's like the old world meeting the new. Whoa, hey, did someone order a Raven here or something? We can see the SPG-9 getting hit by something, or that may have been the SPG-9 firing somewhere. We can see them lining up the Stugna. We now see them firing the Stugna. We can now see it traveling on its way. And it looks like the SPG-9 team is gone. The Ukrainians are great magicians, I have to say. And in a literal puff of smoke, it appears that the SPG-9 team went from existing to non-existent. Russians hate them. See how these Ukrainians destroyed an SPG-9 team with one simple trick. And we see some of the guys right here who are declared to be 300s, but I believe that they aren't in the movie 300. These do not look like Spartans. Very unfortunate for these guys, because maybe if they were Spartans, they'd be a little smarter. With that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of location unknown news and on into our last bit that shows the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours. And it has been another interesting day with 2 Bobcat skid steers being destroyed. We can see, of course, the tweets coming in showing burning Bobcats, flaming Bobcats, a Bobcat doing a wheelie and then throwing dirt onto itself. We can also see a burning excavator. Not a Bobcat skid steer, but I like the thought, the spirit's there. We can also see this itty-bitty Bobcat. This one appears...
That's like a tall Bobcat, a little small one.
Man, I want my Bobcat tall boy. We can see a heavy-duty Bobcat right there, another one on fire, and it just keeps on going. And also, we can see this one right here. That has nothing to do with our channel, but it's not that bad. Anyways, very interesting to see that so many people are talking about the Bobcat skid steer losses again, and we did see that 2 Bobcat skid steers ended up biting the dust over the past 24 hours, and so it is a day worth of celebration. We also saw that 670 Russian soldiers did end up eating dirt as well over the past 24 hours, and they will also be becoming the dirt over the following days and weeks because the Russians never really collect them. We also saw that 10 armored personnel carriers were destroyed over the past 24 hours, a fairly average number over the course of the war, and about a third of a battalion tactical group destroyed over an entire day, which is not that bad. Not bad at all. Of course, bringing the number up to 7,120. We also saw that 15 supply trucks were destroyed over the past 24 hours. That is a fairly high number, as to supply an entire battalion tactical group from empty requires a whole 30 trucks in a single convoy, 8 fuel trucks and the rest of them carrying different kinds of solid supplies. 15 trucks were destroyed over the past 24 hours, and assuming that most battalion tactical groups will not need a complete resupply from empty on everything, that means that maybe 2 to 3 battalion tactical groups worth of forces have been moderately or severely depleted of their resource replenishments for the day, just in the number of vehicles that were destroyed. We also saw that 2 main battle tanks were destroyed over the past 24 hours as well. These are not the highest numbers we've seen of the war. This is below average, but it is still good to know that 2 main battle tanks have been destroyed. Unfortunately, we do not know what kind. They could really be anything from a T-55 to a T-90A. We know if they are T-90Ms because those are always reported, and we always see a video of the T-90Ms getting destroyed. So it could be anything from a T-90 to a T-55. We're not exactly sure. We did see that 6 artillery pieces were also destroyed as well today. About an entire artillery battery plus 2 artillery pieces worth completely gone in the matter of 24 hours. We also saw that 10 drones were shot down, including that Shahed 136 that we saw near Chernihiv, and a single MLRS was also destroyed. Seeing MLRS destroyed at all is somewhat rare. Over the course of 420 days, we've only seen 540 of these examples being destroyed. They're most likely Grads, although they could be Uragons or Smirches as well, although those seem to be far more rare now that the war has progressed on into its later phases. We see those being used less, at least in video and picture evidence, by the Russian forces. But still, these losses are quite decent today, getting on up, I would say, towards the midway range in between being average losses and well above average losses. So above average losses would be the best way to classify this. And from what we can tell, this is not without cause. It does appear that the Russians have run into some pitfalls, to say the least, in Bakhmut today, and this did incur higher losses than the past few days we've been seeing. We're now going to be moving on from those location unknowns and on into the northeastern front line. And we have actually a fairly even spread of news throughout most of the front line, except for in Bakhmut, where of course there's a larger amount of news. But before we get to all of that news, we have to of course address the polls, because Matthew's been running some polls and they are absolutely bussing. In fact, I would say they're exquisite, trying to say the words of the youth these days. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we have 3 polls to address for our first question segment. And the very first one says, a Russian warplane accidentally fired on Belgorod and a massive explosion and buildings damaged. And what are your thoughts? 60% said it was sheer incompetence. 24% said it was only an accident by Russia. 5% said unsure. And 10% said a Russian went rogue. And like I was saying earlier, it's such a bad mistake, 50 miles off target. I have a hard time believing that was just purely an accident. Maybe it was bad information given to the pilot, or the pilot either went bonkers. It's kind of hard to believe they dropped a bomb or whatever weapon that was on their own people, especially civilians. But then again, nothing's, impossible. But I'm unsure, honestly. I don't really know. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it most likely has to be sheer incompetence, because if it was anything other than that, I believe that crew would have been smart enough to have not flown back into their own airfield. They would have flown across the border into Ukraine and tried to either ditch in Ukrainian territory, or they would have landed at a Ukrainian airfield and tried to surrender themselves. And while that sounds kind of far-fetched to be able to land at an airfield, there have been a lot of historical instances where the West has been able to get a hold of Soviet aircraft like a MiG-15 in Korea, and also a MiG-25 nearer to the end of the Cold War, because they were able to fly all the way through Western airspace unimpeded and then to an airfield and land, even without being able to communicate with the guys at the airfield and the people who were operating the surface-to-air missile defense systems. So it is entirely possible that if they were doing something deliberate, they would have been smart enough to fly to Ukraine and then give themselves up and the aircraft to the Ukrainians intact. Instead, they turned around and flew back to their airfield, and they're now there again, probably sitting there and going, "Oh, we blew up our own people. Oh well." So I would have to say I think it is sheer incompetence, just based off of what their, I guess you could say, later actions were after they conducted the bombing. And it's not hard either to say that it is incompetence, because just look at the Russian army and what they've been doing for 421 days, and it is nothing but raw incompetence. If they remove the incompetence and the corruption from the Russian military, they probably would have done a whole lot better than they ever have at this point. Yet that exists. It is the Russians, after all. That stuff exists as a part of their culture for the large part. And so they have not been able to advance whatsoever, and the corruption and the incompetence are rife across the entirety of the armed forces like that. So with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well, in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the second poll says, do you think that the Ukrainian counteroffensive has begun, or is it in the preparation stage? And y'all know we had a lengthy discussion about this last night, so I'm curious to see where y'all stand today. 80% said it's still in the preparation stage, 12% said unsure, and 8% said the counteroffensive has begun. And I've noticed today, obviously, want to make this clear from the get-go, we're not trying to bash anyone. If somebody made a mistake and misquoted it or took it out of context, mistakes happen. But I've seen some folks walk back the comments about the counteroffensive starting. I think some folks have realized that they misinterpreted the quote, and it was simply a very wordy way of saying that they're still working on preparing for the counteroffensive, and it hasn't started yet. So I'm with the 80%. It's still in the preparation stage, and it probably will be for probably a week or two longer. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to completely agree with that, because and actually we had some interesting comments from last night, and the one I remember the most is the one that was sent in Paul Fitzgerald's super chat, saying that an offensive begins when the preparation begins. And I didn't really answer that one that well last night. I'm sorry about that if Paul Fitzgerald is here tonight, because the live chat was blowing up and people were going crazy. But in my opinion, that is not the beginning of a counteroffensive. That is the beginning of the preparations for the counteroffensive, but that's not the counteroffensive itself. Because going off of that logic, we could say that a vacation begins as soon as you start packing a suitcase, and that's not true. That's the preparation to the vacation, but not the vacation itself. That would also be like saying, when you're getting up and going to work and you're brushing your teeth, you're already at work. And everything would start to fall under that umbrella. So of course, the offensive has not begun yet. We did hear, and I actually did watch the video that many people brought up last night from another channel, and it seems as though the quote was misinterpreted, because we also went and got that full quote, and the Deputy Minister of Defense said that the plans for the counteroffensive were underway. That means that the preparations are underway, but the counteroffensive itself has not happened yet. Of course, I'm not saying that the guy's wrong. Everyone gets things wrong. And that's one thing that people don't really seem to understand anymore, is that people can get things wrong, and that just was wrong. It was a misquote, or they misunderstood the quote, or something similar, but the counteroffensive has not begun yet. Of course, the preparations have been underway, and people have known about that for months. I mean, hell, just the day before yesterday, our title on the stream was something like, counteroffensive is coming soon, or something like that. It's been known for a good while that the preparations are happening behind the scenes, and there will be a counteroffensive coming up here in the near future. It's just that it's not happening right now. And until we see one, it's not going to be happening. Another thing that I would have to say about the possibility of a counteroffensive is that in this video, because I did see it, we're not going to call him out because that's a harassment policy thing, and I'm not into calling people out. I mean, the guy messed up a little bit, just leave it at that. No reason to sit there and go and try and blast the guy or anything. I mean, like, hell, we screwed up over here a little bit, and I don't really like it when people blast us, because it was an honest mistake, and I'm sure the guy made an honest mistake. But he spoke of something about the Ukrainian forces in this area being able to advance through about 2 or 3 fields, and this is showing that the offensive has begun. And I've got to tell you that being a history major, and also someone who always has to have a precedent for something, that is by no means a Ukrainian counteroffensive. Yes, they are taking ground, and that could be part of a smaller isolated action. We've seen a lot of that happen in the Northeast during the times right after the Balaklia counteroffensive, but those actions were no longer associated with the counteroffensive itself. Those were entirely separate actions on a company level where they were able to just push the Russians back a little bit and claim some territory. That didn't mean that there was another counteroffensive going on up there, because that means that every single time the Ukrainians engage Russian forces and push them back, they're conducting a counteroffensive and it's a strategic victory, and that's not the case for all of it. So, going off of that, it doesn't seem it's happening yet. It seems as though there's just some small actions going on down here in the Zaporizhian front near Orikhiv, but the offensive hasn't actually started yet. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. I know that a lot of people, and I understand this completely, and I would also like to say, I'm a little sorry. I would like to apologize to some last night when I sat there and said something along the lines of, if you want to sit here and cuss us out, step up and you'll get banned. I had a terrible day yesterday, leading all the way up to the stream. The internet's failing, and they were getting cussed out for saying that something's not happening because it's not. But moving on from that and back into this, I don't really know why that was said, because it's not happening. And on top of that, this channel always runs on video and picture evidence. I've never run this channel on Trust Me Bros, and I'm never going to run this channel on Trust Me Bros. And so if you want to come in here and you want to swear up and down and even get to the point of cussing us out about us being wrong, you better have some picture or video evidence. Otherwise, you're cussing us out over something that is non-existent. Trust me, bro. And we don't run like that. If we ran like that, hell, we'd be like any other we'd be like any other channel. We'd just be coming up with clickbait. We try and keep our stuff founded in reality and have some kind of visual evidence to back up what we're saying, and there just is no visual evidence down there. On top of that, once again, getting back into the previous offensives of yore, like the one in the northeast at Balaklia and the one in Kherson, those were conducted at such a rapid speed that the Ukrainians were covering around 10 miles a day. And there's no reason to think that if a counteroffensive began again, the Ukrainians would only claim 3 country fields with the kind of precise planning that they have and the speed at which they're able to execute these battle plans. That is not a Ukrainian counteroffensive. That's just small frontline shifts. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And we have heard that some people out there are backtracking the statements made yesterday, because it appears that a lot of people are just really enthusiastic to hop on the counteroffensive train. We haven't seen it happen yet, but it probably will be happening soon. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we addressed that poll fairly well.
All right, and the next poll says the U.S. has reversed course and issued Lavrov and his delegation visas, and they will visit New York and meet with the UN chief. And what are your thoughts? 56% said that's very weak and disappointing, 12% said unsure, 24% said got to weigh the pros and the cons, and 8% said that was smart, it would escalate. And I think we can all agree we would love to stick it to Lavrov and his cronies and tell them they are not allowed in the country. But here's my argument. They do have one of our journalists in their custody back in Russia, the Evan fellow. I don't really know his last name right off the bat. But we have to keep that in mind. So when we do things like, for example, denying Lavrov a visa, they might decide to retaliate and maybe harm him, or, do something else that we don't want to happen. So I'm sure they're weighing all the pros and cons behind the scenes, and it turns out that the cons outweighed the pros, apparently, hopefully. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it is pretty weak. I liked it when they originally revoked the visas, or refused to give the visas. And actually, I have to say this: Matthew was dead on the nail with that estimation. He said when that happened, they're probably going to give it back to him at the last minute. And guess what? He was exactly right. They did give it right back to him right at the last minute. And I guess you could say it was more of a symbolic revoking or a refusal of giving the visas to show how displeased the U.S. government is with the Russians and with Lavrov, but at the end they still gave it to him. Honestly, I don't really think we should have. I think we should have just kept the visas revoked and just left it at that. But we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out, because maybe there's a greater plan involved here that we don't really know about. But, we'll just have to wait and see how it all goes and kind of look back and go and say whether that was a good decision or not. But with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw Mark make a good point. He said also the U.S. might have an obligation as the host of the UN. And I have seen many people say that. I think there is, technically speaking, an obligation to let them in the country to attend. But my thing is this: if Russia is violating pretty much every UN regulation or rule that they have, why are we obligated to, abide by the rules on our end? It seems like a double standard to me. So while I do understand the point, but I think, we're kind of like shooting ourselves in our own foot by following the rules to a T while we're letting Russia you basically go rogue and do whatever they want.
And that is a very interesting point, and I would also have to agree with Matthew as well, that it doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense that the Russians can violate just about every rule that, under the sun, and yet we still have to uphold our end of the bargain and uphold rules here. But then again, that kind of falls into the whole line of if we do what they're doing, we're no better than them. So I guess that may also be an idea that's weighing in here, but still, on this one, I could see refusing the visas. So with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on into the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll. So let's move into all of our super chat questions. And we have combined all of tonight's and yesterday's super chats. So we'll be answering them from top to bottom like we usually do. And the very first one goes to BC Skyman. He puts in a very generous $200 super chat. And this one is from last night. He says, "You guys are doing an awesome job, and I appreciate waiting for confirmation before spreading false news. Thank you for your dedication and perseverance through this awful war, and my friend Yuri is going over in 2 weeks, and we are taking more supplies that they are asking for, and Slav Ukraine."
Hey, and thank you so much once again for the support, Mark. And good luck to your friend Yuri, who's going back over there. Hopefully, he'll be able to do a fairly good job, of course, to do his part. And hopefully, the war effort will keep on going even better than it has been. And I've got to thank you so much once again for the support, Mark, and agreeing with us in trying to keep to video and picture evidence. We've never veered off the path of not having video and picture evidence for what we say and what we do. Whenever we say anything, like in the thumbnail and title tonight, everyone can always count on the fact that it will always be in video or picture evidence backing up exactly what we say. There's no way we can't have that kind of stuff, because otherwise I feel like it's not really reporting news. And I got to thank you so much for backing us up on that, because I can't, like, I don't know why people acted like last night. There was, I guess it was a small, but once again, very vocal group, acted like we had to go and back up what everyone else is saying. That's the thing about this channel that makes it the enforcer. We don't have to back up everything everyone's saying. We don't have to back up the experts and what they say, the quote-unquote experts and what they say. A lot of these experts have been flat out wrong. A lot of them have, a lot of the time. And we don't back them up because I don't think a lot of them really are experts. I think they just have the title because people wanted to give it to them, and they sit there and say whatever. I mean, like, hell, does anyone really count like Henry Kissinger as an expert anymore? I mean, like, the guy has sat here and said multiple times. Well, actually, he said multiple times in the earlier part of the war, the Ukrainians ought to give up because the Russians are going to steamroll them. What an expert. And we're still here 421 days
Everybody
later.
should have their retirement date. And I think he's well beyond his.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Mark, and backing us up on that. And I wish your friend Yuri the best of luck. And hopefully we can all continue to make sure that supplies and support keep on making their way to Ukraine, so that way they can hopefully win this war by the time of the end of this year. Of course, that's very optimistic, but still, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, that was actually BC Skyman. So big thanks to you, BC Skyman, again for the support. And I think the enforcer got mixed up between you and Mark. But
I swear you said Mark.
It was BC. But speaking of Mark, our next super chat goes to Mark, who is PFC of the LSA, who puts in a very generous $130 super chat. And thank you very much, Mark, for the support. He says, "Now it's a better day."
Hey! And thank you for the support, Mark. I swear, man, you said Mark on the first one, but it's no big deal. And I'm sorry about that, BC Scammer, but thank you once again for the support and backing us up on that, because it means a lot to us that people, back up what we do and how we run our news, and also support us so that way we can keep on doing it. But welcome back, Mark, again after last night, and it's good to hear that you're building your rank back up. I hope that you eventually get up to general again. It should be as easy as retyping the name. Just put in Mark General LSA, and you'll be good to go. I promise. There will be no questioning whatsoever as to the rank. Matthew, get an investigative crew on him. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because support like yours, Mark, does help us to keep on covering the news the way we cover it. Well, and also we're ad-free and sponsor-free thanks to y'all support. I don't know why I'm stuttering through that so badly. But with that, we are on to the final one of this segment. But thank you so much once again, Mark, for always being a channel supporter and helping this channel to keep on rolling.
Yes, indeed. And also, real quick, I have one piece of commentary because I see some folks getting upset that the enforcer made a comment about the experts. One thing I've never understood, because my field of study is political science and international relations. One thing I've never understood is the entire field revolves around studying and trying to analyze what leaders do around the world. They're somewhat unpredictable to a large extent. There are certain patterns that are similar in all different leaders and different governments, but they're largely unpredictable for the most part. So how can you be an expert at something that is largely unpredictable? To me, that doesn't make much sense. I mean, they can take educated guesses, but nobody is concrete, 100% right all the time.
And I'd also like to bring everyone back to this because at the beginning of the war, General Milley was an expert on the situation with the Russians, and this was given to us by Jay Bagwell. And this kind of statement, this one comes from Fox News specifically, but these kinds of statements were circling around at the beginning of this war a lot. General Milley says Kyiv could fall within 72 hours if Russia decides to invade Ukraine. This was made just about 3 weeks before the beginning of the war. And this is what the experts were saying then. I don't mean to come off as arrogant, because some people say that comes off as arrogant. It's not supposed to be. It's just that when you are supposedly an expert and you get so many things wrong, and you get more things wrong than you get right, I don't really think you're that much of an expert. You're just more of someone throwing crap at a wall and hoping some of it sticks, and if some of it sticks, people say you're an expert. And now people are probably going to start going, well, Milley isn't really an expert. Well, what about that expert who said that the U.S. blew up the Nord Stream pipeline and then came up with this heavily narrated story like he was literally in the situation rooms when this stuff was happening? What about that expert? Or what about the other experts that said that once the Russians withdrew from the northern Kyiv area, they were going to move all their forces down east and steamroll the Ukrainians in a matter of 2 months? How about all those experts? Or how about the experts that said that the Russians were the best in the world up until the war? What about all of those experts? That's what I'm talking about. I would agree with the folks that are saying in the chat. I saw a couple of people take a shot at my field of study, political science. I have to agree with you. Political science is a misnomer in itself. There's really no science to it. It's simply whatever works at the given time. The problem with political science is people try to apply exact structures to decisions that are being made around the world. You can't do that because people are people, and they're prone to imperfections. They're not perfect. They don't operate all the same. That's what I learned going through all of that stuff in political science is you can't predict stuff perfectly every single time. It's just educated guesses. That's why you'll see the experts getting things wrong so often, because they're just like us taking guesses, but they have slightly more base knowledge than the average person. And also another thing about experts is that, like Matthew, I have to agree, trying to put a set model of something does not work. But one thing I've seen that works, and a reason why this channel has been able to get things right where experts don't, like the war isn't going to be 3 days long, they're not going to succeed when they withdraw from the north and move into the eastern area of Ukraine. We've gotten a lot of that stuff right, and usually we've gotten it right because instead of trying to work off of some kind of a stupid model, which I think is just pointless, we work off of historical precedent, where I go, a similar situation like this happened in a prior war, and it didn't work, or something similar to that. Or, look at the Winter War, look at the Polish-Soviet War, look at wars like that, and let's see how they turned out. That's what I do. And that's why I don't like experts either, because no expert ever does that. No expert ever sits there and explains how they got to this, whatever they're saying, like the Russians could take Kyiv within 72 hours. Here's why, and then gives a breakdown of how effective Russian logistics are, along with their attacking forces, what they could do, and how they would actually pair up against Ukrainians in the field. They never say anything like that. Like, a lot of the experts just rode the wagon for decades after the collapse of the Soviet Union, acting like the Russian Federation was the embodiment of the entirety of the Soviet Union and still was as modern and as advanced as the Soviet Union was in the 70s and the 80s, which is just no longer the case. And these experts rode that gravy train, acting like they knew that that was the answer until the last minute. And then as soon as they saw that the Russians fell flat on their faces, then the experts want to go and turn around months after we had been saying that, turn around their entire statement and say, oh, the Russians sucked the whole time. They never were good. And I don't like that kind of stuff. I said since the start, the Russians aren't that good. I was able to back, and hell, we even backed that up with historical examples. Like, look at the Chechen wars, the first and second Chechen war. Look at the war that Russia had with Georgia in 2009. We were able to back up every single thing that happened with historical instances and historical shortfallings of the Russian Federation, both in their logistics and their communications. So those were the two main things we saw at the beginning of this war that fell apart, were their logistics and their communications. The experts never said anything about that. We did. And I'm not trying to say I'm an expert or anything. All I'm saying is that those guys aren't experts either, in my opinion, because if you're getting that much wrong, there's no way in hell you're an expert. Because if a nuclear scientist or a doctor got that much wrong, they would have their licenses revoked. You know, think about that. And once again,
Actually, they don't.
Well, yeah, usually
They
they
just keep
don't.
practicing.
Yeah, usually they don't. Usually they keep practicing or they lead to a nuclear meltdown or something, but still, in a perfect world, they would usually have their licenses revoked, although that's very rare. So, with that, I hope that addresses that the best we can, and I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it does mean a lot to us that people do enjoy this enough that y'all would support us and help us to keep this thing rolling, because you know, the way we run our channel is unique, and it's actually butted heads with a lot of YouTubers. A lot of, well, not a lot, but some YouTubers, a very, very small number, and I can really only think of one who's been beefing with us forever. They, part of the reason why they don't like us is because we run the news this way. You know, that's how the channel runs. I'm a history major. In, I think, like a week's time, I'm going to be graduating college, and I'm finally going to have a Bachelor's of Science, a BS, so I'm going to be a bullshit artist. I'm going to have a Bachelor's of Science, and my major was history. That's how I run the channel. That's my base of knowledge, is history. So I use historical examples and historical precedents to try and draw patterns and see how this war will unfold. And for the large part, it's worked. In some instances, it hasn't. You know, and of course, there's going to be a margin of error with everything. But I feel like this way of going around figuring out what will be happening in the future in the war is far more effective and far more, I guess you could say, realistic than other ways that other supposed experts have been doing it. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support. And was that our final question of this segment?
We actually have one more to go. And I saw, let's see here. Hold on. I saw Jerry H. say, if political science is your major, you're going to be very poor. Statistically speaking, I would agree with you on that. But luckily, I just used that as a stepping stone to get to law school. I just chose an easy major, and that was the one that I saw, and I went for that one. And it's largely useless, if I'm being completely honest. But if you want something easy, just take that. I don't know about history, though.
Oh, yeah, history, you're just poor. History, you're just broke. You don't get a job or anything with a history degree. The whole point is to get the law school. That was the whole point of the degree. And also, I knew a decent amount about history going into it. So, you know, it was like, hey, that's a pretty easy degree to get to move on into law school. And they also accept history degrees far more availably and a lot more than they do any other degree. So it's like the perfect degree to get into law school with. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. A lot of people are wanting to come to our grad party. I would love to, but I'm afraid we're going to get a statuette from someone if we try and bring everyone, and then I get blown up on stage. So we're kind of avoiding bringing a lot of people to the grad party. It'll just be kind of a little bit of a quieter one. But with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going right back into the news.
And this one goes to Mark, PFC of the LSA once again, and he threw in an $85 super chat, and this one came in from tonight, and he says, building my rank back up.
Hey, and I thank you once again for the support, Mark. I think I actually addressed that one a little bit earlier, and he is making his way back up the chain all the way up to General of the LSA again. Hopefully we'll see him switch into a General by tomorrow night, and I wish you the best of luck, Mark, once again climbing the ranks back up to General. And always remember that no matter what, wait a minute, looks like our OBS may have died. Hang on. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, freaked me out there for a second. Really did. Because YouTube said we had no data, literally for like 5 seconds. And I thought that the OBS just dropped dead. The OBS was fine. I don't know what that was. But still, Hope you get your rank back up, and thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Mark, and helping this channel to keep on running. You have been one of the largest channel supporters that we've had over the course of this over the entirety of the channel, both in the fundraisers and both to us and helping us to keep this thing rolling. And I got to thank you so much for the massive contributions that you've been making to help us to keep this thing rolling, because everyone always supports the fundraisers, and it's incredible and amazing. And some of y'all go on to also support this channel, and we're greatly appreciative to y'all as y'all help to make everything on this channel possible. The news we cover every night, the videos we're able to put out here and there, hopefully a lot more soon, later, and also y'all help us to keep those fundraisers rolling as well. And so thank you so much once again, Mark, for keeping us in mind and helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the question segment and on into the northeastern front, where we've seen over the past 24 hours, and let me make sure to update the map. And it updated finally. I don't know what it is. I hate this, because it seems as though Deep State is now updating the map just like 20 minutes into the stream, so I don't really get to see it well before the stream. But that's fine. Deep State does an amazing job, one of the most accurate maps out there. But over the past 24 hours, we haven't really seen a lot of developments anywhere, for that matter, in the northeast, as you could see. But moving on down into the area of Novomikilske, we did see that Russians did get hit by a bomblet in that area today. And so here's
That's not a Russian.
and we can see the explosion right there. And we now see the Russians crawling around a little bit. I guess you could say that they did get knocked around a little bit. We can see another explosion right there. It looks like they may have been able to get a couple of others as wounded. Also, Matthew, I'm hearing your mouse clicking every once in a while over there. Not to be crazy or anything, man, but I hear people on the walls. Anyways, we see another bomblet dropping on top of another group of Russian soldiers, and it appears that they also got those as well. With that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip. Once again, the 503rd Brigade was able to get those guys, and we're now going to be moving on down to the area of Ploshchanka, where we saw that they got another 5 Russians with an FPV drone. And they got these guys dead on. There's no question at all. They did get these. And so the drone's flying in, ever so smoothly, ever so gently. Kind of quickly, actually. It's going pretty fast. And... oh no. Oh no, that's not good. A whole 5 guys, burgers and fries, are about to get had by this FPV drone. And we can, of course, see the feed cut right there because it blew up. And we can see them doing a little, like, video effects thing, and it looks like it landed right in the center of them. We didn't get to see the footage from another drone of what happened to them, but I think y'all can fill in the blanks and figure out what happened there. It's not really like it's a question whether they were gotten or not. They were had. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that area in the northeast and on down towards the Kreminna area, where we saw the 108th preparing for battle. And so, here's the clip.
Привіт, друзі! Ми знаходимося в лабораторії 108-го окремо гірсько-штурмового батальйону.
You see them showing all of their 3D printers at work. And I have to say, the 3D printer companies are being kept in business entirely by Ukrainian units right now. There are more 3D printers in Ukraine than there are in the rest of the world combined, it seems, at this point.
Ought to have a credit card reader attached to it, though.
Man, they got that thing ready for a transaction. Like another unit comes in and goes, "Hey, we would hand out the, like a 3D spool. Could you make us a bomblet?" And they go, "Yes. Do you want cash or credit?"
A little commercial business on the side.
I mean, they just running a little hustle.
І період розпаду даного пластика складає не більше часу, ніж період розпаду самої дохлої русні. Тому після перемоги буде тільки
And they are at work. They even 3D printed a little Ukrainian guy holding a thumbs up right there. Look, he's got the little blue armbands and the thumbs up and everything.
Oh, yeah, sure do.
They, of course, had to have a little bit of fun with these things because they are really cool. I wonder if... well, never mind. I won't say that because I was like, that might not actually sound that great. But anyways, with that, that's the end of the clip. And it's still great to see that the 108th Brigade is getting ready to go back out there in the field and, of course, be able to have some drone bomblets to help support the infantry with. We're now going to be moving down into the area of Verkno-Kamyanka, where we saw that a BMP was destroyed in the Luhansk region today, most likely around here, as this is where the 25th Brigade operates. But you can see the BMP-2 right there, and you see it in some kind of an infrared. You see the drone getting closer. Closer.
Peter, the bomblet's here.
Clink. and it goes right into the hatch. And it explodes. It appears that it exploded back towards the infantry compartment, but that had no impact whatsoever, as it appears that the fire has immediately started. It may be igniting the ammunition in the chain gun, or it may be igniting the fuel that's held in between the infantry and the crew compartment. Regardless, this thing is toasting. And we can see that as the video goes on, the BMP gets warmer.
And apparently, by the way, that was actually the control panel for the 3D printer. That wasn't a credit card reader, so
Oh,
so now I feel
dang.
like a goof.
Well, it's fine. I took it for face value. But we see them hitting a BMP-1 right there. And it appears that this one will also... Well, it's not really toasting yet. They dropped an F1 grenade in there now. And now it might be toasting. Oh, yeah, it's toasting. There's a little bit of smoke coming out, so this one will also... Wait, nope. Third time's the charm. That one actually exploded on the outside of the tank. That one bounced off the rim like a basketball. We now see a fourth one being dropped in there. And the BMP-1 appears to be a little bit more difficult to destroy than the BMP-2 for now. They're dropping a fifth one in. And that one led to a little bit more smoke, no explosion though. They are having a very hard time taking out this BMP-1. Dang, they took out the BMP-2 with ease. This one, however, this one's made of something else. This one's built different, as they say. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but still, great to see that they're able to destroy the BMPs out there in the Verkhnut-Kamyanka area in the 25th Air Mobile Brigade, and also very interested to see that their unit patch is Bumblebee from the Transformers, I'm guessing. An interesting one. We've been seeing the patches get more and more interesting as the war goes on, but they have their reasons. There is the 231st Battalion out there that's going, Igor! And hopefully we'll be able to see an Igor unit patch pop up in the future. With that, we're now going to be moving on down into the area of Rosdelivka, where we saw that the Russians were hitting a ditch. That rhymes. And here's the video. It's actually quite a lengthy one.
They called it the Ditch of Death.
The Ditch of Death. More like... Oh, never mind. We're limited sometimes by our own rules and conventions, but we can see the Russians moving down the ditch. I think the Mick Lick joke's got to be the most,
Edgy one.
Yeah, the edgiest joke I've made in a long time. It looks like a lot of people liked it, though, and, you know, I don't know. That's we might try and do more of them. I don't really know. But we can see that the Russians are making their way down the trench. We can see a railroad track directly to the right of them, of course, unused.
Oh, this is a series. This is the season 1.
Yeah, this is season 1.
Ditch of Death.
The Ditch of Death. And now we can see the mortar fire coming down in the squad. It appears that they are now pinned down. We can see some smaller explosions back here to the left side. Maybe some kind of a grenade launcher firing at them.
Man, if soldiers had like the flags of their country above their head like that, like they had on the screen just a minute ago, that would make war a lot easier.
Yeah. It's a Call of Duty lobby then. It's just sitting there, hey, I see him. I mean, like, pull out the red dots and everything, have usernames above their head. Let's see. Jack the Dripper. Have Jack the Dripper. And Thug Shaker Central. But we can see the Russians moving down the trench. I'm telling you though, that was the funniest name to ever hear. That will go down in the history books most likely. Kind of like in the 70s during another incident. They'll probably put Thug Shaker Central down the books, and kids in high school are going to be asking, "What the hell is Thug Shaker Central?" But anyways,
I'm asking that right now. I want to know what I don't know what it means.
Like, what is it like? What does that really mean? Are they shaking thugs, or thugs shaking their posteriors? What's going on here? And why is it central? Is this like a station or something where people do this? But we can see that they did get 2 of them. Moving back into the video footage here, and it looks like this guy has been hit twice. Hit me once, shame on you. Hit me twice, I'm over with. I'm done with. We can see them still trying to crawl forward, and it seems as though they're not really making a lot of progress here. We see the third guy kind of squirming forward a little bit. And it appears that the second guy is also moving a little bit as well right now, and it appears that the artillery fire has ceased for the large part for a moment, but there's still some kind of grenade fire coming around in the area. Well, you still see the grenade launchers, 40 mils, exploding near the infantry, but it's not really causing a lot of damage to them at the moment, but it is keeping them down. We now see one landing almost right into the ditch. This one did land in the ditch. That one landed right on top of someone. Oh, the third guy. Uh-oh. Well, he's smoking. Not smoking hot. He's just smoking. We can see a fourth one was just had as well. We can see the mortar fire coming back in. A fifth one was just had. And it appears that they've gotten the grenade fire right on the mark. The first guy in the group is actually still there, and he is on the move. Look at him go. A lot of these guys are sleeping on the job. Putin is not happy about that. And we can see the first Russian in the group. He's made it quite a distance, actually. And in the words of Lorraine Sweet, oh my. And we can see that the rest of the squad... We can actually see this guy up here. He got up. He's making a run for it.
He's the smartest one in the bunch.
Oh, he almost tripped and fell right there. Oh, he tripping. He tripping, though. But is he dripping? We can see him get below a tree right there. It looks like he made it to where he wanted to go. We can now see some more Russians in the ditch. We can also see them zooming in on a blurred out area. Of course, we have no idea what's under the blurred out area, but we can see the plume of another mortar shell landing nearby as the second guy in the group tries to move up. Meanwhile, the medic in the squad is going, "Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a surgeon. These guys are lost." And he's just getting up and probably running off at this point.
You say a doctor, not a surgeon?
Yeah.
I thought a doctor was a surgeon.
Nah, they're two separate things. Two separate things. And the sixth guy is gone. And I love that.
It's gotta feel bad to be like pinned down in a trench like this, knowing that you're probably going to get whacked because they don't have any idea how to like get out of danger.
Yeah, they really don't. They have no danger reflex whatsoever. They just kind of sit there. And we can see them still sitting there. A lot of them are just pinned down. They don't really know where to go, what to do. Their SL is most likely dead, or he's abandoned them at this point. He may have been the first guy in the line. And when you see that the artillery fire is still coming down on them, and you can kind of get a good idea right here how Russian casualties continue to climb. We just saw the seventh guy go to sleep right there. You can kind of get a good idea of how Russian casualties are always climbing, because a lot of Russian units are found in places like these in the wide open. They're spotted by a drone, and the Ukrainians call in artillery, and they just bombard this unit until there's no one left. And this is where a lot of those losses, like the 690 or so we've seen today, are from very similar situations like these. This also happens a lot in the urban areas as well. Although we don't see this a lot on film, we do see similar situations where a Russian squad gets near a house or gets into a house, and then the Ukrainians call in artillery on it, and there's really nowhere for those Russians to go, and they're picked off one by one until the artillery is called off. And that's also how the losses keep on racking up. We've now seen that an eighth guy has been added to the list. Once again, a blur being added. When we see one Russian soldier right there, it appears that he is still hanging in, and he's getting ready to make a move. And the drone spotting, or the ability to use these drones, the way we're seeing... Oh, there went the ninth guy. He turned into confetti. But it's always hard for these squads to even find any kind of cover, because there's really no cover in the forests, because it doesn't really break line of sight with infantry. They're not really being concerned about infantry anymore. And this drone, as you can see, can look clearly through the forests. It can look into the ditch. So moving through there, yes, it stops other infantry from seeing them, but that isn't even really their concern anymore. Their concern is the drones themselves that are flying over their lines and looking straight down at where they are. And so there really is no place for the Russians to hide.
Have you ever seen a Russian bust a move?
Not these guys. They're not busting moves.
I haven't either. That's the point.
Man, you know what they are busting, though?
What?
Their asses. But anyway, we can see that 10 of them have been had, and I believe that 10 of them were as many of them that came into the battle, and it looks like 10 of them will not be coming back out. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but once again showing how badly things have been going for the Russians on the very northern end of the battlefield, and also how effective the K2 has been at getting them. We're now going to be moving on down into the Berlivka area and Bakhmut itself, and we've seen very small advances in the Bakhmut area. Of course, the Russians have once again been attempting a push. We've seen that they are taking this area near to the small little stream or canal in the southern part of the city, most likely being unopposed in this area, and we've also seen that they've been able to create a hold somewhere on the railroad tracks in that area. We're going to be going into Bakhmut real quick to see what that specific spot looks like. So here's the railroad track. And it appears that the area that they're claiming the Russians have taken is right here. So it appears to be a small wooded area with some allotment buildings or very, very small houses in it. So it appears that they have moved across the railroad tracks, at least according to Deep State UA, but that holding is somewhat weak as there are very few structures there, and so they are largely in the open if they are in that area. Moving on into the clip in Berkivka, however, we did see the Ukrainians shell the trench, and a couple of Russians ended up taking naps.
Man, I thought that was you clapping over there or something.
I thought that was an exercise routine. We're now going to do squats. Ready? Begin. Boom, boom. But anyways, we can see the Russians moving around in the trench right there. Of course, the drone observing them the entire time. And we can see the artillery land, and it looks like it was quite effective, although it didn't land in the trench. Their heads were above the trench line, so it appears that many of them just got some very good dreams. We can now see that the trench is a little bit quieter now. And the Ukrainian artillery is most likely going to be dialing it in. And we can see right there it lands into the bottom corner of the trench. Dial it in. Dial it in. And you see it's quite effective. We can now see the Russians moving an evacuation group out of the area. And we can now see them doing something. It looks like they've dropped them. And they're now having a group huddle around them. Shell just landed nearby, so they all kind of laid low on the floor. We now see them on the run again. We now see them getting down. We haven't seen an artillery explosion there. We now see them on the move through a wooded area. And we can kind of see them on the move. The drone pilot is very observant, being able to see these guys down there. And it looks like that was a very effective hit. I can't really tell y'all why, but it was very effective nonetheless. We can see the smoke billowing out of the area, and we can see the artillery hitting them as they continue to try and move on up the tree line. We can see the artillery absolutely hammering this group. And it doesn't appear that there's much left. That's the end of the clip, but once again showing how the Ukrainians are still pinning down the Russians and making sure to try and wipe out as many as possible on the northwestern ridgeline to make sure that they are no longer able to advance behind the Ukrainians' lines near Kromove. Moving on into Bakhmut, we also saw the damage that the city has been taking even in the rear areas of the line, like here. Of course, we have to mute that. But we can see the destroyed cars, the rubble, all across the ground, and the destroyed buildings as well. From what we understand, every single building in Bakhmut at this point has been destroyed to the point it's no longer usable. I think that guy was just firing through the floor. I really couldn't tell. And I think he is. We now see something on fire. We see him showing off his hand, and that's the end of the video, but giving a small look at the Battle of Bakhmut still going on in the city itself. We're now going to be moving behind the city and into the, I guess you could say, the Highway of Life, which many people have been calling it. We also call it the Race, where we saw that another Wagner soldier has been captured. It is going to be added to the Prisoner Exchange Fund.
У всех у нас только одна цель. И все, большего нас ничего не объединяет. Сказали, за любое неповиновение будет расстрел.
And what's he wearing? Concrete galoshes?
Aye, buddy, where you're going, you're going to be wearing concrete galoshes. But still, looks like that guy was captured, and he'll be added to the Prisoner Exchange Fund. We're going to be moving on a little bit further back on the T-0504, where we saw an MRAP being dragged away after it was hit by an anti-tank mine. Of course, in the, I guess you could say, tradition of the Max Pros being the Max at being a pro, the crew survived this explosion, but we can see that the MRAP has had better days. and the whole front was practically blown off by this anti-tank mine. Yet the MRAP's compartment was so strong, and of course of American quality, that it did not puncture. And I got to tell you, made in
Man,
America.
those Max Pros always do their job really good.
I know. I mean, like at this point, it's like, why even use APCs when you can use MRAPs and Max Pros? It seems as though they have more armor protection than APCs do at this point. But still, amazing to see that this thing was able to survive an anti-tank mine directly under the front right wheel, and the crew was able to survive it as well. This thing is probably going to be a write-off, however, or require a massive amount of rebuilding, so we probably won't see this one used in the war again. But still, amazing to see the protective qualities of the armor of the MRAP. We're now going to be moving on from that clip and on a little bit further behind the lines into Kalinia, where we saw the Ukrainians having to get a rodent out of the tank. It appears that Packrat dropped off his rats. He packed them into the engine, and now they're having to get them out. We see them looking around for the rodent. We see the rodent was up here in this pipe at the top of the screen.
Is that the rodent of anger?
I believe it may be the rodent of anger.
Єбать, я охуєв. Єбать, так це вона ще сюди може залізти.
Тихо.
Блок, бля.
Вона не попаде через радіатор.
Зверху вона може.
Зараз буде легти воду сюди з тобою.
Бо вона і сюди, понямо.
Тихо.
See, they're trying to get the rodent out of the pipe.
Нахуй ти на стражі, хай би вилазив.
Роз'їбнуло, я ж не страшився.
Заєбав, бля.
I have a feeling this road is going to come out and want all the smoke.
Та бо нехуй антифриз зливати, бля, я вже був.
Але масло тут дохуї.
See them tapping on top of the place where the rodent may be.
Зараз буде легти воду, вона вийде.
They're still tapping on it. They're trying to get this little critter out of there, and it looks like they're being unsuccessful at the moment. Oh, there it is.
Oh,
Dang,
oh, it's
dude.
kind of a sweet rat.
Dude, they just gave that thing the freaking Chinese waterboard treatment. What the hell? Like, they just like pour water in there. Dude, that thing shot out like a torpedo. That thing was like, get me out of here. And now you can see
Who
it.
knew the whole thing worked with the water?
Я хуєю.
Now you see it trying to get on out of there.
Та то щура не миш, блядь.
And I got to say, you know, some people are going to be like, oh my God, they almost drowned the thing. You know, I'm going to have to say this. They are in the middle of a war, and they are just trying to get this truck running. It's unbelievable, really, that they even took the time to try and get the mouse. It's not a rat, it's a mouse, actually, out of the engine. So I got to give them credit for giving it the attempt and actually getting the little mouse out of there without causing it too much harm. And it looks like it worked. It looks like it actually worked, but that was a very cute little mouse right there. And I like how it popped out of the opening like a little torpedo.
Like the other guy would say, drown him out, drown him out.
Drown him out, drown him out. But look at this. The airline goes, whoop, when the thing pops up. And then the mouse is like, oh, hello. But
Man,
anyway,
he came out looking like, no more water, thanks.
dude, it's like I told y'all when. Stop filling my cup with water. It's like someone at a dinner table. But anyways, good to see that they got the mouse out of there. Hopefully, it'll go on and having a good life and doing things that hopefully David Attenborough can document. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news behind the line. Best of luck, of course, to the little mouse. It's tiny. And with that, we're going to be moving on into the Donetsk area, where, of course, we did not see a lot of frontline activity or news today. But going over the front lane itself, over the past 24 hours, we have seen that the Ukrainians have reclaimed several fields. It looks like maybe 2.5 from the Russians south of Marinka. We don't really know a lot about this frontline activity. We don't have any videos to back it up, but it does appear that the Ukrainians have been able to make a small push against the Russians here and push them back, which is very interesting to see and very great to know that the Ukrainians do possess that ability on the flanks of the Marinka battlefield. But the only video we got today was from Avdiivka, where there was no frontline changes whatsoever, but we did see a BMP catch on fire. And so we can see the crew bailing out. I don't even know how they got out of that inferno. When you see one guy standing on top of it still, he's now jumping off. They're all making a run for it, and there goes the BMP like Nate. Actually, that's a main battle tank. Turret toss! Wait a minute, we got to get a rating. What's the rating for that? We've got to have a rating for that thing. That was quite a turret toss. That was not the BMP. That was another tank, but that was one hell of a turret toss. Look at that.
Man, the theatrics of this one would warrant a 10, but I got to
Yeah.
give it a 9.5 because it did have a small arc problem. So 9.5 for me.
I would give it a 9. It could have been a little bit better in my opinion, but still impressive. Also, this, I don't even know why in the world this guy is waiting. There's literally an inferno going on inside of this APC, and he's like, should I jump it or what? But dang, that was something. And so with that, that's the end of that clip. Wild to see, and we're now moving out of the Donetsk area. That's the only footage we got, and down into Volodar, where we saw that that a BMP from the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces was blown up today as they once again attempted a smaller push towards Volodar, but it appears to have completely failed. Here's the video, and we're gonna have to mute it. But we can see the BMP turn into a roaring fireball, and I don't think the crew was okay. We can also see the squads behind that BMP running for the hills as soon as it blows up. We can see the entire squad literally turn around and start running out of the field. And it appears that the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade is once again making no progress towards Volodar, and the frontline map does show that as well. So that's the only footage we got from the Volodar today. The Battle of Volodar has ended. This is a part of a smaller action, not associated with any large battle, but they still did not succeed even at the small action. We're now moving on into the area of Starl-Manivka, where we saw that the 59th Brigade was also destroyed. I'm sorry, the 59th Brigade destroyed 2 Russian units, and so here's the clip. Oh, yeah! But we're gonna have to mute that.
That is vibrating my brain cells.
I know, man. I felt like I just lost maybe 10 of them. And we can see an ATGM fly in past the bridge, exploding on a BMP, and we now see that BMP coming around the corner, a little smoky, and we can see the crew bailing out as the BMP is going out of control. Man, that guy right there just broke an arm or something, probably, jumping out like that. And that thing's still going. Dude, that thing turned into Thomas the Tank Engine. That thing's chugging along. Like, golly. But you now see the other APC literally running off the field and just spun around and started driving off and is leaving these guys there to die or something similar. So once again, Russian battle buddies being Russian battle buddies. Nothing new. We're moving on from that clip and on out of the Starl-Manivka area and on towards Polpiske, where we saw the Ukrainians once again hitting another Russian trench in that area. And we got to mute that because it's just someone screaming. But anyways, we can see the FPV drone flying around the trench in the middle of this burned out field.
They call this the Eska drone.
And it's going to lead Russians to have a great escape. And look at that. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Wait, looks like you got one. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but very interesting to see that they got another one. We're now going to be moving out of that little bit of news and on towards the area of Vasilivka, where you saw some Mi-24s in action with the 11th Separate Army in operation in the southern front, and once again attacking the Russians with their rockets. And this video is 2 minutes and 45 seconds long, and without further ado, here's the clip. I like that, but sadly we've got it muted. So we can see the Mi-24 firing off its rockets and turning off. We can see that footage taken from the side door of the Mi-24. We can now see an Mi-17 firing onto Russian forces on a highway, firing rockets into a tree line. Well, actually, through a tree line. We can now see an Mi-24 pilot. We can see a montage of Mi-24s in action in the area. Of course, Mi-24s being the workhorse of the Ukrainian attack helicopter forces, they do not have access to the more modern helicopters that the Russians have, like the Ka-52 and the Mi-28, but it doesn't really appear to have changed much for the Russians in this war, but still, it is, while an old helicopter, quite an impressive one still. We can see it coming in night vision to land at this helipad. We can, of course, see the rocket loading montage. Everyone loves one.
Wow, is it that easy to load it?
Yeah, you just literally shove them in, and then you kind of just spin them. Like, I think you spin them counterclockwise, and then they're ready to go. So it's
that is easy as hell. I thought it was a lot more complicated than that.
No, it's easy.
Oh, putain.
Also, I like this. I like this pilot's just sitting here. What a nice day. He's just his Mi-24 is in the middle of a sunflower field. He's just wandering through it. We now see them flying through some fog. It's very dangerous for helicopter pilots, actually. We can see them flying probably near the area of Mykolaiv earlier on in the war. We now see them firing off their rockets again on film. We see an Su-27 flying over, a Ukrainian one, of course. You see them flying through some cloud cover. That's really beautiful, actually. We now see them firing off their rockets again and taking a hard left bank, firing off their flares. We now see the Mi-24 in the sunflower field again as they're caressing it and having a daydream where they married the Mi-24. You can also see the Mi-24 pilots again once at work. Once again at work. That's actually how that was supposed to be said.
A little macro shot.
See them tilting up and firing here. Now see them turning back down, and doesn't look like they're popping on flare. Oh, there we go. Finally, the flares. Man, I can tell you this. The Ukrainians fly these helicopters well, but put this thing in the hands of a Sudanese helicopter pilot, and I can promise you the rotors will be sheared off before the week's out. We can now see an Mi-17 coming in. And we now see them standing on top of used rocket casings, I believe. We now see some Mi-17s getting ready for another sortie. And LSA Charlie said, copyright sucks. Why would you say that? Why would you? There's no... Oh, wait, you mean about the music in this video? I thought you meant that the video had been, like, copyrighted or something. I was probably like, no way. I was checking my email right there. Sorry about that. I misunderstood that. But we can see those rockets from the Mi-24s landing in the field, and it looks like it was a somewhat inaccurate spread, but still very efficient, as these are largely just very mobile and very maneuverable MLRSs at this point in the war. With that, that's the end of the clip, but a huge credit to the Ukrainian helicopter forces of the 11th Separate Army Aviation Brigade that have been providing vital support in the area of Kherson ever since the beginning of the war. And with that, we have now covered all of the news, north to south, east to west, from every single part of Ukraine, and it's now time for us to move on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky on day 421 and 420 of the war in Ukraine. And of course, we've never mentioned this tonight, but it is 420. It is April 20th, and I know many of y'all are celebrating this day with great delight. I don't mean to rain on the parade or anything, but April 20th is also a day that that had something a little important, at least historically in modern history, happen on it. Would you like to take a guess as what that was, Matthew?
I'm scared.
Well, that's not an answer, but it kind of is. Why are you scared, Matthew?
A bad man. It was his day today.
It was his day today. In case y'all didn't know, the guy who Putin is largely associated with, Adolf Hitler, was actually born on April 20th. The more you know. And so with that, now that I've ruined 420 for everyone, here's the address from President Volodymyr Zelensky on day 421 of the war in Ukraine. So let me get this up.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Щойно звернувся до парламенту Мексики. І це вже друге таке звернення до регіону Латинської Америки. Вдячний Мексиці за увагу до України та підтримку нашого погляду на міжнародну безпеку, на необхідність якнайширшого єднання світу для захисту міжнародного права. Бо якщо право не працюватиме, загроза життю лише зростатиме. Бандити і агресори ставатимуть ще більш нахабними. Маємо цього не допустити. Фактично саме цьому ж сьогодні у Києві були присвячені переговори з очільником НАТО Єнсом Столтенбергом. Захист України, захист усього міжнародного порядку, заснованого на правилах, захист життя. Готуємось до зустрічі Рамштайну, і позиція пана Столтенберга є важливою. Готуємось до наших активних дій на фронті, вони неминучі. Готуємось до саміту НАТО у Вільнюсі, який запланований на літо цього року, але його зміст опрацьовується вже зараз. Саме на таких зустрічах, у контактах різного рівня, які ми ведемо із нашими партнерами. Ані більшість українців, ані більшість європейців, ані більшість мешканців усього простору НАТО не зрозуміють лідерів Альянсу, якщо на цьому саміті у Вільнюсі не прозвучить заслужене політичне запрошення для України до Альянсу. Україна все зробила для того, щоб наша заявка була задоволена. Складно навіть сказати, чий внесок більший у європейську і євроатлантичну безпеку, ніж наших воїнів, українців і українок, які своїм життям захищають свободу. Дякую всім партнерам, які нас в цьому підтримують. Відбувся сьогодні в Києві міжнародний саміт міст та регіонів, новий формат співпраці нашої держави із партнерами, Конгрес місцевих та регіональних влад України, який об'єднує центральну владу та місцевих керівників, тепер набуває міжнародного рівня, щоб активніше залучати іноземних партнерів до відбудови в нашій державі, до розвитку економіки, інфраструктури в наших громадах. Я вдячний усім, хто взяв участь у саміті. Представники різних країн, міст, муніципалітетів, європейські інституції, Ради Європи, президент Комітету регіонів Євросоюзу, більше сотні учасників майже із 40 країн. Вдячний кожному і кожній за підтримку України. Сьогодні зустрівся з мером Парижу пані Ан Ідальго, мав честь вручити їй спеціальну відзнаку України для столиці Франції, відзнаку міста рятівника. Париж став одним із найбільших центрів сили для України в Європі. В усіх сенсах хочу особливо відзначити допомогу у захисті нашої енергетики. Саме у столиці Франції відбулася конференція формату, як її назвали, енергетичний Рамштайн. Париж акумулював для України вагому підтримку обладнанням для енергетики, надає соціальну та гуманітарну підтримку. Я дякую усім французам, усім парижанам, президенту Франції Макрону за незмінну увагу до України, за лідерство. Особливо хочу відзначити абсолютно принципову і таку співзвучну українській позиції пані мера Парижу щодо захисту олімпійського руху від російської ідеологізації, від пропаганди. Очевидно, що держава-терорист буде робити все, щоб виправдати себе через спорт або щоб використати міжнародний олімпійський рух на підтримку своєї агресії. Саме тому важливо, щоб поки триває агресія, російська держава не мала жодного доступу до спортивних та олімпійських майданчиків, зокрема до Паризького майданчику. Саме це місто прийматиме Олімпіаду 2024 року. Пані мер Парижу сьогодні ще раз підтвердила, що не бачить місця представникам держави-агресора в Парижі, поки триває агресія. Це чіткий, важливий сигнал. Дякую за нього. Було б добре, щоб саме такі сигнали чули в Міжнародному олімпійському комітеті, де поки що, на жаль, особиста вигода окремих бюрократів домінує над олімпійськими принципами. Ще одне. Сьогодні завершується священний для мусульман місяць Рамадан. І вже вдруге завершується у час повномасштабної агресії держави зла проти України, проти усіх наших людей, усіх спільнот. Світле свято Рамазан Байрам заслуговує зовсім інших умов, заслуговує миру, якого ми так прагнемо, заслуговує перемоги, до якої ми всі йдемо. Вірю, що Господь благословить Україну волею для всіх наших територій та всіх наших людей. Бажаю усій нашій мусульманській громаді та усім мусульманам світу спокійного свята. Рамазан Байраминис Хайрли Ве Мубарек Олсун. Слава усім нашим воїнам, хто зараз в бою заради України. Дякую всім, хто допомагає. Слава Україні!
Well, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and that wraps up our day 421 news summary of the news of the war in Ukraine. I want to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching the news tonight, and I am happy to know that many of y'all find this channel to be a credible source of news every single day on this war. If you are new to this channel and you did enjoy tonight's stream, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also hit the bell button when you subscribe, so that way you can be hopefully notified, although it seems it doesn't really work much on when these streams are live, which is every single day of the week, 6 days a week. Tuesday through Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine, and we only take Mondays off every single week. And when we come back on Tuesday, you can even expect us to count Monday into the news and cover the past 48 hours of the war in Ukraine on that day. But still, I want to thank everyone so much once again for watching the news tonight. And of course, the fun's not over, as we're going to be moving on into our question segment and addressing all of the questions that have come in from the super chats and as many live chats as we possibly can. And so, before we even get into all of that, now that I've built up y'all's expectations, like I do every night, that we're getting right into the super chats, we're getting into the polls instead, because the polls are great. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and of course, we have the best polls. We love the polls, and the polls are great. And the very first one we have says, NATO's Stoltenberg says that Ukraine's future is in NATO. And is Ukraine already a de facto member? 51% said yes, they are. 7% said unsure. 19% said somewhat to an extent. And 23% said no, they aren't de facto right now. And I would say that they are somewhat to an extent because NATO is sending a massive amount of support to Ukraine. And even though they aren't technically a NATO member, they are basically receiving all the support they would probably as a NATO member, minus putting troops on the ground. So I would go the 19%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to go with the 51% actually that say it's already largely a de facto member. It's not officially a NATO member yet, but the intent amongst all of NATO, which has been unanimous from what we can tell, although a lot of people would throw Hungary into question, it really isn't, because whenever it actually comes down to a vote in a international assembly, much like NATO or the United Nations, they almost always vote to condemn the Russians. And so while their leader in Hungary may not be so pro-Ukrainian, their country as a whole is. Beyond that, it does seem it is unanimous that all NATO countries will sponsor the Ukrainians joining the NATO alliance after the war is over. And obviously, the United States will certainly be pushing for that to happen, because if it does happen and the Ukrainians do give us the right to have U.S. bases within the country of Ukraine, it is certain that we will be having U.S. forces within a few hundred miles of Volgograd, and we'll also be having a second offensive route towards Moscow, which is strategically important in case if a conventional war was to break out. It also gives the Russians less hands strategically in the future in Europe and allows the United States to grow its sphere of influence, so that way countries like Russia cannot continue to, I guess you could say, try and push us around in Eastern Europe any longer, because we would have all of the cards. All of the cards to play, that is. And so with that, I hope that does address the poll fairly well, because I think it's almost a certainty at this point. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next poll says, reports indicate that Russians control most of Bakhmut, and should Ukraine hold or retreat? 27% said yes, retreat to Chasiv Yar. 19% said unsure. 29% said maybe they can hold out longer. And 25% said no, there is no need to retreat yet. And to me, I'm not sure exactly how many units or soldiers are still left in the surrounding areas around Bakhmut, but it does look like the Russians are making some progress. So with them controlling most of Bakhmut, I would say that it's probably wise to go ahead and retreat to Chasiv Yar. Otherwise, you do risk, having those soldiers on the ground come under unnecessary fire and attack, when they could go to high ground and attack them from there instead and be much safer. But of course, we don't know the entire situation on the ground, because we are over here in the U.S. and the Ukrainians are actually on the ground. But I'm with the 27%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say a slow retreat will most likely be the best thing for Ukrainian forces to undergo, which is what they're doing right now, because the Russians are advancing, and it is inevitable that they will eventually take Bakhmut. However, the Ukrainians are holding as much of the city for as long as possible to try and inflict as many casualties. They will eventually get pushed out of Bakhmut, however, and I think when they do, they will conduct the retreat where they do end up in Chasiv Yar, and the battle then continues on from there. But there is really no reason to try and pull them out and give up the ground freely without giving up a fight. The Russians have done that a lot in the war, and it's never really been to their advantage. It's actually been to a great detriment of theirs, although there was really no other choice for them. Their hand was kind of forced in all of those instances. But for the Ukrainians, there is a choice, and they can make sure to bleed the Russians for every single field and every single city block that they are going to take. So I would say a slow retreat would probably be the best option for the Ukrainians going forward. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And I saw that Bobby Karolfa said only the Russians should retreat. I agree with that completely. But in the Battle of Bakhmut, sadly, reality is reality. The Russians will take Bakhmut eventually. And I think it's really a matter of how should the Ukrainians go about this. Should they hold the town like no tomorrow? Should they slowly retreat? Or should they retreat in their entirety to Chasiv Yar immediately? And I think a slow retreat would be the best of the three options. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next poll.
And the next poll says, Ukraine says it will be terminating its lease agreement with the Russian embassy in Kyiv. And what are your thoughts? 64% said, I'm surprised they waited to do that. 28% said, good. Russia doesn't deserve an embassy. 4% said unsure. And 4% said, we need to allow the embassy to stay. And I am with the 64%. I'm kind of shocked that Ukraine hasn't done that already. They kind of came in and said, hey, excuse me, your lease agreement is up. Now get out. And you can see the poor rating it has here. It's a 2.2 star on Yelp.
Dreadful.
Very poor rating. It looks like a prison camp from the picture right there. Jeez. But yeah, it's a good thing to do that. Russia doesn't need an embassy because they are wrongfully attacking the country. So why allow them to have a little safe haven in the middle of the place that they're attacking? That doesn't seem to make sense. So I would agree with the Ukrainian decision to get them out. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would also have to agree with that. I don't even know why they waited this long. For 421 days, the embassy has stood there, and they've never gotten rid of it. It's a very small building, however. If you look at it, it is somewhat small. But let's go to the Embassy of Russia, Kyiv, and let's see their reviews. Because I'm very interested. Website still showing that they're open, but they are closed. Don't you think it's time to update your web information in Russia? This guy's giving the Russians a little bit too much credit for being competent. Do they work at all? Not a single phone is answered. In February to March, this was last year, at least they answered. Or were they expelled from Kyiv? And how do we solve consular issues? Where else can I call to get in touch? I don't think they realized that there's a war going on. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Does not accept citizens that you need. What? Oh, okay, anyways. I called on the phone to ask about some nuances of filing out a migration card at the border and received an answer. Contact the border guards, and in general, the conversation was an absolutely unacceptable and friendly tone. No way, it's like they're Russians or something. Such a feeling that they answered me on the phone! The information was not given, and they offered the phone number of their border guards for information! Why should I call Russia to find absolutely elementary information? In general, I remember how people were treated in state offices under the Union, as if I had returned at that time. 1 star.
What?
What?
What are they, crazy?
On December 26th, they filed documents for obtaining a foreign passport. We were told, wait for a call after 5:03, and we're given the number to which you can call yourself. And the yard on May 27th, no one called us, and I myself can't get through for 2 weeks. Either it's busy or no one picks up the phone. I called the consulate by another number, but the girl, in a very arrogant tone, made it clear that she didn't and the slightest desire to answer me anything. Scoop in all its glory. Scoop what, though? Scoop what? Let's see. At 1100, we are going to picket our Slavic brothers. For obvious reasons, everyone is welcome. I ask everyone in advance to refrain from provocations of any kind. We, unlike Russia, want peace, and we give Russia a chance to come to their senses. I really don't want the start of World War III in our country, ... That was 3 years ago. Man, this guy knew what was up 3 years ago. I gotta give him a lot of credit. Let's see here. And also, he's talking about the beginning of the war officially on the, well, actually, that is March 2nd of 2014. I think the war started on February 20th of 2014, if you consider the annexation of Crimea and the Donbass conflict to be the beginning of the war. It started on February 20th. Let's see. There used to be a magnificent 3-story building, but the occupiers neglected it beyond recognition. Well, apparently they don't keep up the building well either. Bad people, period. They should be sent somewhere far, far away. Let's see.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. It is unrealistic to get through. To get in only by appointment by phone. The result, the consulate does not fulfill its function. Okay, good.
That was a year ago. Like the war might have been going on then.
We need to have these organized by date. The newest first. Just constantly 1-star reviews coming in. Overall, not great. Their country, they're nothing but assholes. Let's see. That was a year ago. Man, they just get a lot of 1-star reviews. And everyone's talking about how they're assholes. I mean, it's like a reoccurring theme. Even by Russians.
That's crazy, man.
That's crazy, man. It's crazy. But still, yes, I don't know why they've waited this long. It should have been gone earlier because their service is terrible. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next poll.
In our next poll says, NASA denies Ukraine's claim that the large flash seen over Kyiv was a satellite falling from the sky. And what are your thoughts? Excuse me. 56% said it was probably... 56% said it's probably a meteor, 18% said unsure, 10% said it was a Russian weapon, and 16% said it was something else. Ooh. But I would say it was probably a meteor, probably nothing crazy. Typically, when you see stuff like this, it's nothing, out of the ordinary or extraterrestrial or anything like that. And it's probably something as simple as a meteor flashing up in the sky and entering the atmosphere. And kind of interesting that Ukraine said at first that it was NASA's satellite when apparently they had no basis to make that statement. And another interesting aspect is the air defenses were triggered, and they sounded the air raid alarms, and also issued an alert because of that flash. So they're saying it's a precaution, but it seems a little fishy at that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I really have no clue what that thing is because they said it was a NASA satellite, then NASA said, no, it ain't. And then they're like, oh, well, it was a thing. I don't know what it was. It could have been a meteor. It could have been anything. Hell, it could have been the United States conducting some weather changing pattern stuff. The liberal media, they're lying to you, or something like that. Anyways, with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well because I'd have no idea what that thing was. And now, Matthew, now it's time for people to go, he's so arrogant, he knows everything, while I'm sitting here saying I have no idea. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
Yes, if you were arrogant, you'd say, it was a meteor, and nobody questioned anything I said.
If I was arrogant, I would be like someone out there who would just whip up the Twitter and go read word for word someone else's comments on it and then take it as my own. That's what I would do. But anyway, and then act like it's my original idea. Oh boy.
If only you had the knowledge I had.
If only people were as smart as me. If only people could read, because not a lot of folks can do that, you know. But anyways, with that, we were on to the next one.
All right, and our last poll says, according to leaked documents, China snubbed Wagner's request for weapons, and what are your thoughts? 43% said Russia is China's only interest, 18% said unsure, 16% said I'm somewhat surprised, and 23% said Putin told them not to. And I would say it's a combination of the first option and the last option. Let's see. And see, the first option is actually backwards. Or actually, it's right. My brain's playing tricks on me. I would say that Russia is China's only interest. They are looking to try to make Russia into their next colony, is the best way I can describe it. They're going to try to do the same thing to Russia that they've done in other countries and enslaving them to the Belt and Road Initiative on a very grand scale. And also, Putin probably warned them not to do that or suggested not to because Prigozhin is Putin's one political adversary that could rise up and try to take him out, and he wouldn't want them to be emboldened with weapons. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that the Russians and the Chinese have a mutual interest to try and grow closer together. For the Russians, it's to economically survive. For the Chinese, it's for cheap resources. And so the both of them are drawing closer together for those reasons. So we'll probably expect to see that Russian policy continues to move in that direction. Because it seems as though the Russians are perfectly fine with understanding that they will take the backseat to the Chinese if they end up in an alliance with them of any kind. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And before we move on to the next one, Matthew, I'd actually like to take the moment to address a live chat because I saw something interesting. I gotta find it here again. Let's see. Let me go up. Let's see here. Dang it! I lost it. How in the world did I lose it?
Oh man.
Because it was a good question actually, and it was so good I was wanting to make sure that we addressed it immediately. But sadly, I can't find it again. Oh no! Someone got hyper political. They got axed. Once again.
Yeah, we don't have that around here.
Since we had that, let me bring this up again real quick. I understand that a lot of people are very political in their lives, but we don't have any of that here on this channel. We make sure that there are no politics whatsoever. We do not take a political side. Every once in a while, however, we may bash politics, but we usually make that pretty fair. We bash both sides at the same time. And I don't really want the channel to even be known for that either. We make really no political statements whatsoever. And we would also ask that y'all do not in the live chat, because then there will be a battle down there, and it'll create bloodshed, and then it starts dividing Ukraine supporters into different groups. And then there's less support for Ukraine. And then on top of that, because of the live chat, which really has no bearing on us, people will start to say if one group wins over the other that we were a part of that group. And we don't want to be a part of either group. We're pretty happy where we are. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Just saw someone get executed. It's one of those North Korean public executions. And let this be an example to the rest of you. But anyways, I'm just kidding about that. You know, a lot of people understand that this is a non-political channel. There are a lot of people out there that do that. And I believe a while ago, Matthew, we actually called them out, and then they acted like they didn't, and then you can just see it on their Twitter like hourly. But anyways,
oh man, it's so hateful.
I know.
Hateful.
Clip it, will you? Clip
I would hate to be that filled with hate.
I don't even understand it, really. Like, when you think about it, I don't understand people on both sides who are like that, because it's like, wanting to kill the other side isn't going to achieve anything but making sure that they want to kill you as well. And nothing really gets fixed or changed. I just don't get it. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And with that being said, that was our last poll. So we're moving on to our super chat questions while I stifle a cough there. Also, Brian V said in the live chat, did you watch the Starship rocket test today? I didn't watch it live, but I did watch it on a video. I saw some folks calling it a failure. That is not a failure in the world of rockets, believe it or not. That is actually a success. It got off the ground, and that's what they were looking for. Believe it or not, I remember back in the day when the smaller rockets were landing on the little mobile like drone ships, and they were all like blowing up. Everybody was laughing and laughing and laughing until finally it worked, and then nobody was laughing anymore, and that was really impressive. But anyways, Enforcer, would you like to weigh in before we move on to our first super chat?
Yes, I would, and I actually have a video clip here to show, just in case if anyone didn't see it. I haven't really been able to watch it a lot myself, but it was a success, actually. And I have to say this real quick, while a lot of people deride Elon for one reason or another, and I'm not going to allow my personal comments on the guy to be put out there, because the guy's also, much like many people nowadays, kind of a political figure, so I really can't talk about the guy too much. But one thing I can say is that, just as a separate thing, I do respect the I guess you could say the undertakings that SpaceX has made, because SpaceX has made I guess you could say satellite launches and a whole bunch of other things, and on top of that, it's brought back astronauts to being launched on American rockets to be sent to the ISS instead of Russian ones. SpaceX has done a lot of good for the United States in terms of space exploration, and also the industry of space itself. And the Starship project, in my opinion, is a necessary step to making sure that the United States can get an advantage over its rivals around the world, like China and Russia, although Russia is not really that important of a rival anymore. It's more so just China, in making sure to get to foreign bodies faster, and possibly even extract resources from them, like the moon and Mars, although Mars will most likely be unlikely even for several more decades, but the moon is not that far away and has a pretty decent amount of rich resources under it. So I do have to applaud the efforts of the Starship program and SpaceX as a company as a whole, and I'm going to leave my comments about the guy who owns SpaceX, or is a major shareholder, over on its own. There's really no comment there, but moving on from that, we can see here the Starship launch.
This is a huge rocket.
This is actually the largest rocket that has ever been built in history. And this is the first launch of the entire system, the booster and the rocket itself. Well, the booster and the Starship. We can now see it's made it way on up in the atmosphere up there. We can hardly see it. And we can now see them detonate it.
Man, my right ear loves rocket launches.
Man, my right ear is loving this.
Was that SpaceX headquarters or something?
I think this may be SpaceX headquarters. But I gotta say, this is certainly a small step in the right direction of finally getting the Starship program off of the ground. One thing I will say, though, is that the orbital test was supposed to have been completed, from what I understand, months ago, but due to some EPA stuff surrounding the Boca Chica launch site, that had been delayed for a very long amount of time. But still, it is amazing to see that the Starship program is making so much progress, and I would never be one to stop the wheels of progress. That's certainly progress in the right direction, and a great representation of the ingenuity and the great people in the United States of America who work together in the hundreds of thousands to make things like that possible. And so I would never sit there on that program and deride the program, because so many great people here in the United States and around the world are involved in that project and making that a possibility, so that way the world can keep on moving forward. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving into our first Super Chat question, we have a $100 donation from none other than Praise Adonai, a longtime channel viewer who has made a return. And it's good to see you again, Praise Adonai, and thank you very much for the support. And they say, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, experts are only as good as their intel. Intel is research of facts, and intel is IQ, and your channel's success is due to both. And research and IQ, and you guys make it a success. That's why your channel rocks, and 90% of the rest are clickbait. And thank you very much for the very high praise, Praise Adonai. And I guess praise is in your name, but thank you very much.
And I thank you so much for the high praise, Praise Adonai. I feel I've got to be honest. Intel is IQ. I've got to be honest. I try my best. It's not the best thing out there. I mean, it's great, yeah, but and I'm happy that a lot of people love it. But there's always other sources. I always highly suggest that people go to other sources, but at the same time, people stay critical and logical. I think that's very important. And I love to know that we do have a lot of people in the Lee Spring Army who often step up and say, hey, that you make sure to go and check that and review that real quick, and take a look at it and see if that is true or not. I love that we have a lot of people in the Lee Spring Army like that. And I got to thank you so much for enjoying this channel and saying that it is a success. I would say more so than the streams and the videos themselves being successes in the numbers of views or anything that they get. The fundraisers are what this channel really lives for. $920,000 raised. We're only about $80,000 away at this point from reaching $1 million raised in support of Ukraine, and I think that speaks volumes about this channel, the community it has, and what we've been doing. And I got to thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support. Praise Adonai, because while our fundraisers are amazing, the support that y'all send in through the super chats to this channel, of course, helps us to keep on making those fundraisers possible and making this stream possible as a daily thing. And I've got to thank everyone so much who always keeps this channel in mind and supports us, because y'all really do help this channel to keep on rolling. Of course, y'all also help it to keep it free for everybody else. There are no memberships, there are no sponsors, there are no ads. It is completely free if anyone wants to just get on here and watch and get the news of the day. No one has to sit through anything that is monetized whatsoever. All anyone can do is throw in a super chat if they enjoyed, and y'all even get to decide how much y'all find this channel to be worthwhile. And I gotta thank you so much once again, Praise Adonai, for finding us to be that worthwhile, that you would support us that greatly, and also enjoying this channel so much to say such kind things. It does mean a lot to us, and I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Magic Skygirl, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Magic Skygirl, for the support. And this one came in last night, and she said, thanks for coming back, guys, and the LSA love you.
And thank you so much once again for the support, Magic Sky Girl. Sadly, we came back and then died later, and we didn't even get to that super chat last night. But you are here tonight. I do see you in the live chat tonight, and I thank you so much once again, Magic Sky Girl, for supporting us and helping this channel to keep on running. Because you, like many others, have been helping us to keep this thing rolling behind the scenes, and without support like y'all's, it wouldn't have been possible to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one is a $50 super chat from none other than Jesus UCSB, who says, Hola, LSA Army. I'm once again on R&R from Napo Bonkin. It's hard work, but someone has to do it. And I wanted to also thank the Mexican Congress for allowing Zelensky to speak today. Slava Ukraine and Jesus loves you. LA tankers are cool. Lols.
And I thank you so much for the support. Once again, Jesus UCSB, and it's great to have you back here for a little bit. Of course, there's got to be folks out there on the front lines of the internet bravely facing down the Russian bots and giving them a run for their money. And I've got to say, I hope you've been doing a good job. And of course, it's great to have you back in the Lee Spring Army once again, at least last night, I think. Well, actually, I think that was tonight, wasn't it?
Yes, that was tonight.
And I got to thank you so much for being here tonight, Jesus UCSB, and of course, helping this channel keep on running, because while you've been bonking the bots, this channel has gotten to within $80,000 of $1 million raised for fundraisers, and I got to say that's absolutely unbelievable, and I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so, if you're leaving again to go out there and crush some bots, best of luck to you and Godspeed. And so with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and the next one goes to Hal Rose, who puts in a $33 donation. And thank you very much for the support, Hal. And Hal says, Enforcer Matt, you are blessed to have freedom of speech. No rants, please. And pick a question from the chat, please. And I would agree with you 100%. We are quite blessed to have that here in the US of A, because a lot of places don't have it. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I've got to thank you so much for the support. It is great to know that we do have freedom of speech, and we'll avoid the rant or the soapbox. And so we'll be moving on straight to the live chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question goes to Diamond, who says, maybe they were just flying over the city en route to a target, and the bomb just fell off over Belgorod.
I would doubt that, because I think, let's see, what is the arming process for a bomb. Because I believe the bomb is armed after there's some kind of a fuse. Let's see. Fuses. The Marines actually talk about oh, no. We're not getting the PDF from the Marines. I don't care if it's from Camp Lejeune. It's literally from Camp Lejeune. Hope y'all enjoy the water. But yeah, we're not
You were a loved one.
Huh?
If you were a loved one.
If you were a loved one, lived at Camp Lejeune in between the years 1954 and 1967, you may be entitled to financial compensation. If you drank the water, swam in the water, breathed in the water, or were even near the water, you are now subject to all kinds of nasty crap. But
man, you know, if you ever hear a commercial come on that says, if you were a loved one, the attorneys are about to clean up.
Oh,
They're about to clean up, baby.
Oh, they
and go
are.
home.
Let's see here. Does a bomb arm when ejected from a plane? Let's see. We can't really get an answer to how the bomb arms, but as far as I understand it, the bombs are not armed while just sitting on the plane's pylons. And I'll try and get an Su-34 with some bombs on it to show that. Let's see here. This is close enough. It's got some external fuel tanks on it right here, I believe. I don't think those are Fab 500s. They don't look like Fab 500s. But anyways, they would be mounted on the pylons like that. And while they're on a pylon, they're not armed. But once they are ejected from the pylon, there's some kind of, I believe, an electrical charge or something similar that's set off within the pylon while it's ejecting the bomb that then arms it. Also, you could hear the aircraft flying over at a very low altitude, like it dived on the city to drop the bomb, or it was flying at a low altitude on a bombing run. And usually Russian aircraft are not flying that low, that deep in Russian territory. So I would have to say it is most likely unlikely that it was the bomb just falling off the pylon, because that would be really odd for the thing to have been armed and then blown up, and then it just dropped right off the pylon. On top of that, a lot of people are saying, well, they said, and they, as in the Russian government, said it fell off the pylon. Of course, they're not going to want you to know the pilots dropped the bomb on Belgorod deliberately, so they're going to tell you that it fell off. Kind of like if we're going to believe what the Russians say here, I got to go back and say the Moskva wasn't sunk by the Ukrainians. It was just a smoking accident or something. Everything becomes an accident at that point if we go off of what the Russians say. So I would have to go with they dropped it deliberately on the city, because there's really no other way for that bomb to have been armed and go off. So let's see here. Let's see, there's a ground safety pin that has to be pulled. Hokey Redneck said there's a ground safety pin. So I'm guessing that's how the bomb's armed. I'm still doubting, even if it was armed on the plane, that it just accidentally fell off. Because hell, the only way I can think of a bomb falling off is either that the plane's hardly flying because it's in such disrepair, or the plane pulled a high G maneuver and then the bomb got sheared off pretty much off the pylon. So
or they just said, oopsie daisy.
Yeah, Your Honor, my client pleads oopsie daisy. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for sponsoring the live chat. And once again, that's just in my opinion. I'm not an expert on bombs. So, you know, I don't really know how they're armed or anything, but I would probably doubt that it was just an accident. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we addressed that fairly well.
And Ukraine Dude 88 said the pilots are probably fired from their jobs. No, they probably got a medal knowing how Russia operates.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, our next super chat goes to Santiago Flores, who puts in a $25 donation. And thank you very much, Santiago, for the support. And he says, good evening. And after tonight, have a drink and some pizza. I love your work, guys, and your nice mix of humor. And don't eat your foot, please. Cheers.
And thank you for the support. I'll try not to eat my foot, but sometimes feet have to be eaten. Because things are wrong, and that's the way we correct wrong things around here, is eating my feet. Not a Harvey Weinstein kind of way of eating feet, but, you know, it's eating feet nonetheless. Harvey Weinstein has been a topic in 2 jokes tonight, and if I had a nickel for every time I made a joke about Harvey Weinstein, I'd have 2. But it is kind of weird that it did happen twice. Anyways, moving on from that, we will make sure to have a pizza and a coffee on you. Probably not a coffee at 12:30 in the morning, though, but we will have a pizza. I love pizza. Pizza's great, right, Matthew?
I love pizza. Pizza
Right.
is great. Pizza loves me. I love pizza.
We love pizza. We love it. Absolutely love it, Jerry. It's killing it. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And of course, we are on to the next one. But thank you for supporting this channel and always helping us to keep this thing running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Seba. And thank you very much for the support, Seba. And they say, what percentage of heavy equipment do you think Russia has left?
I would say maybe around 50%, maybe 40% in some categories, because they've lost a massive number. And I believe in tank losses, they're getting on up towards the 60% area of tank losses. And that's why they're pulling out T-54s, T-55s, and T-62s and getting them ready for frontline service, because there's not really anything left for them to bring out. So I would say somewhere in between 40 to 60%, 40% being the low end, 60% being the high end. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support, Seba, and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you do help this channel to keep on rolling. And I want y'all to know that we are greatly appreciative of y'all's decision to support this channel. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And while everybody is just loathing over some wonderful pizza, I don't think loathing's the proper term for that.
Yeah, I don't think
means
that's
hate. But whatever. English is not our strong suit here, nor is math. But anyways, up next, we have a $20 super chat from Jared Foster. And thank you very much, Jared, for the support. He says, will you both take an extra night off for your graduation ceremony? You should. And we will all celebrate too on your behalf in your big moment. And Slav Ukraine.
And I thank you for the support in Slava Ukraine. And thank you so much for saying you would all celebrate it on our behalf. The plan is actually, because the graduation is in the morning, not at night, is to get the graduation over with, come home, and run the stream. And that's the plan. So we won't have to miss a stream because of that. And I don't believe in stopping streams for anything. I don't mean to go on a soapbox here, but this stream is never going to stop for anything. We're not stopping. The brakes are not coming off. We're keeping this thing running until the war is over. 6 days a week. And there are people in Ukraine who are living in literal hell right now, in muddy little holes in the ground, getting shelled every single day and being shot at by other people, and they have it a lot worse than us. And I would feel like that is a very narcissistic thing of me to do, to sit there and go, we're more important than those guys over there, and talking about their story and keeping people informed as to what's happening with them, and to take a day off for something like a graduation, or because I'm tired, or because I'm sleepy or something. And that's why we've never really taken off a lot of days for that kind of stuff. We've only decided to cancel a stream 3 days. 2 of those were on Thanksgiving, and 1 of those days was Christmas Day. Rather than that, we're never stopping the stream. We're never going to stop this thing from keeping on running, because I think that it is a massive service to Ukrainians overseas who do watch this channel and let us know every once in a while that they are, and it also keeps people's attention on the war in Ukraine, and also makes sure that the fundraisers are still incredibly high. So we do not care. We're going to keep this thing running until the wheels come off. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Thank you for the kind words, though, and I do like the thought. That was a very kind thought of you. And with that, we are on to the next one. And hopefully it's a great graduation.
Hopefully so. And also, I see everybody still going on about the pizza. I got to say that I gave away part of my supper to the enforcer tonight, and I'm kind of regretting it now because I'm so hungry over here. I'm dying.
I got to thank you. I got to thank you so much.
Yes, he's very wonderful with that taco.
with that taco. It was a delicious taco. It was a Taco Bell taco. And I had that taco, and it was good. It was delicious. I loved it. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. Capiche?
All right, and the next one goes to Sharon Flynn, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you, Sharon, for the support. She says, you rock. I knew you'd kill your presentation. And yeah, y'all are cutting out and lagging a bit. And that was last night.
And thank you so much for the support, Sharon Tikorsky. Of course, I killed it. Killed it, Jerry. Killed it. And it was a pretty good presentation overall. So hopefully I can get my essays done like that and get some good grades on them as well. And I got to thank you so much for supporting us on getting that oral presentation done, because that was a pretty big part of the grade in that class. And I thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Grathawk. And thank you very much for the support. Sorry for your issues tonight, he says. And question, does it take more bandwidth to stream than it just does to view? And yes, it does. But slightly more.
It takes slightly more, and I thank you for the support in understanding the problems we had last night. One thing that always just I got to tell you all this. It drives me up the wall is whenever I sit there and put out an announcement after the internet just screws us over, and I go, hey, sorry everyone for the connectivity issues. We're so sorry about that, but we're going to be running this thing tomorrow and running a marathon and all that stuff. You know, y'all can go read the community post. It's there. And then someone sits there and goes, you know what? This channel sucks, and I think I'm going to go somewhere else because they're losing their way because we had internet connectivity issues. It's like I can't really control the internet. That's like that's the goofiest thing I've ever heard. Like it just aggravates me. If y'all know what I mean, it just aggravates me. It's just like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to just go and build internet infrastructure entirely on my own? I mean, like if so, hell, we're going to have like literally millions of dollars of super chats coming in per day. Hell, we would be the IRS at that point. Literally, we would be taking in pretty much taxes from people and then trying to build internet off of that. That would be outrageous.
Oh,
What?
oh, don't mention the IRS. I don't want to hear the name.
Oh God, it's scary. But anyways, with
Man,
that,
nobody takes on the IRS. You saw Batman. He would, well, Joker actually. He would take on Batman, but he wouldn't take on the IRS.
Man,
That's just a battle you don't want.
you know what, man? That meme's been floating around for a while, man. You know it's got to be serious when it's been floating around for years. If he was still bringing up that meme, but with that, oh, looks like the B.
Get out of here, B.
The B just got the B, and they came in here doing all that political crap. You know, I'm wondering if people test this because that's the complete opposite end of the spectrum politically than the other guy that just got banned. What, did people just come in here and see which leaning we have? We don't have one. People who go ultra political, they get axed. Either way, we don't pick a side with that. We are very militant on making sure that there are no politics on this channel. I don't know why people think they can come in here and be like, no, it's my chance. It's like, no, it's not going to be a chance. No one's even going to remember who you were because he's going to get you in literally 5 milliseconds. But anyways, hello there. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Santiago Flores. He puts in a $20 donation and says, good evening, and pick a question from the live chat, and love the humor. Keep tie up.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for enjoying that humor. I try my best. I gotta tell y'all, I gotta be honest with you, I gotta level with y'all. Yesterday was a terrible day for me all around. It was rough. Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. No part of that day went well. I woke up and immediately started getting in fights with people over ridiculous stuff. I mean, it was just ridiculous stuff, like trying to go to the commons at my college to go like have lunch for a minute. And I get denied entry. I'm a student and everything. I can enter, you know, and then they deny me entry. So I get in a fight with them, get in a fight with some other people, you know, fights just all throughout the day, get to the stream, and then the internet's falling apart. And then people are saying that something happened. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't seem to be true. And then people jump us for that. Like, I just got, it was literally, I had to have been the worst day I've had in a while because it was just bad from the start to the finish. But anyways, that was a rough day yesterday. And can you reread that super chat because that was supposed to be heading in a direction?
Live chat question.
Yeah, could you reread it?
That's it.
Oh, okay. Well, with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. We're going to be getting on into the live chat.
And this one goes to Chris, who says, do you think after China has gone to Russia, they are trying to influence countries not to go to the Ramstein meeting for NATO?
Can you reread that one again? I'm sorry, I misunderstood it, I believe.
Do you think that after China has gone to Russia, they are trying to influence countries not to go to the Ramstein NATO meeting?
I don't believe they're trying to do that because the Ramstein NATO meeting is a NATO meeting, and nothing they're doing with Russia really has any say within NATO itself. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat fairly well. Thank you so much once again for supporting and sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $12 donation and says late tax. Taxes.
Oh God.
But anyway, late tax. Just spent the night in Baladonia, where the USA Skylab crashed. Next stop, Coolgardie, where a gold rush started. As always, your stream and channel is the gold standard of streams.
And I thank you so much for saying it's the gold standard of streams. We try our best, I promise. And also, how do you spell Baldonia?
Bala, like B-A-L-L-A, Donia. Don-I-A.
There we go. In Australia. Look at that. This is in the middle of nowhere. There's not even anyone living here. What the hell? Wait a minute, we got to go down here and look at what this looks like. Someone actually took the Google car down here. Oh my god, it's literally like nothing.
That's a mean looking storm coming up there too.
Oh man, do you come from the land down under? Bang, bang. And then you just get electrocuted by a lightning.
It's the storm, the perfect storm.
Crikey, mate, it's an Australian storm. Wait, hang on. Look at that. It's an old Soviet storm cloud. They're all over.
Let's go over there and take a look at it. And then you find some homeless guy pissing under it or something.
Oh, jeez.
But man, I mean, this is literally nothing. I mean, like in the Midwest, you see stuff like this. But Australia is nothing but this for the most part, except for small parts of the West Coast and the southeastern East Coast. But this is wild. And also, it looks so arid. It really does look like what they show in the movies as the Outback, and I guess that's because it's filmed in the Outback. And you know what's better than the Outback, Matthew? Outback Steakhouse. But I'm just kidding. Outback kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's not a great representation of Australia at all, and I don't even think they're Australian. But still, that is incredibly wild. And,
Huckle Biddy.
when you're at a night, you flash someone and they say yeah, a little cockle bitty. But anyways, sorry, that one was getting on up there towards the Mick one, but still, with that, I thank you for the support. I wish you the best of luck on that road trip. That's one hell of a road trip right there. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and also watching us in the middle of a road trip like that one. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley yet again, who puts in a $12 donation and says, Jake Bro had a bit on Donbass Debushka. She is a pro-Russian grifter, he states, who was in the U.S. Navy for over 10 years. She was not born in Donbass and uses fake accent. NAFO called her out, you could say. Anya NAFO.
And I thank you for the support. Very interesting here that there has been a story made on this person. I really don't know who they are. Like, that's how uninformed they are to me. I don't even know who they are. So, let's see. What's she called again?
Donbass Debushka.
Donbass Debushka. Let's see here. All right.
Debushka.
Devushka?
Looks like it.
So let's see here. Let's go to the Times. The flash sale. So this is the person? Ah, paywall! Get out of there. Let's go to the New York Post. So this is the person?
I guess so.
Interesting. Well. Yeah, I don't even know who these people are. This is news to me. And also, look at that filter. Observe the filter being used on this picture. That has got to be the Madame Tussauds filter right there. That is a filter.
Looking like anime or something.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't even look natural. That's a filter. In case of y'all don't know what a filter is a system on a phone that automatically makes you look better. And that's got to be a filter, because I've never seen anyone in real life that looks like that. That's got to be a filter. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. I wouldn't doubt she's a grifter, because using a filter that strong, got to be a grifter. That's the rule. Filters, grifter. Filters, grifter filters. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, Bliet. And I guess you could see that she's not the only one using a fake accent, Bliet. Boris from Leva Boris. I'm just kidding. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
Now, look, I have been warned by like 10 or 15 people before the stream started tonight. They said, look out for this bot. His name's Denny Blazer. He's going to show up when you mention Donbass Devushka. And sure enough, he popped up in the chat right as we mentioned that name. Everyone's like, there he is, get him. So he's gone. I don't know exactly what his deal was. He was really passionate about that lady we just saw in the image there. Must be her boyfriend or something. But anyways, up next, we have a super chat from Psyops. He puts in a $10 donation and says, this just in. And this just in, we're going to have a tough time reading. Let's see. Let's see.
I'm having a feeling I need to get my phone ready for review.
This one doesn't even need review, sadly. It is very, very questionable, and I think we're going to have to pass on reading it. But instead, what we'll do is Saib sent us some wonderful pictures that he had commissioned by Miles, and they're in your Discord DM, and he wanted us to show them.
Oh yeah, we can show them. Yeah, sure. Let me go to that one. Yeah. Oh yeah. Here they are. We gotta show them. Drag, and drop. There we go. All right. So here's the first one right here. It's a little Ukrainian soldier playing a piano. He's got a little blue tape. And then in the second picture, he's over here playing the piano. And once again, blue tape. This was really impressive, actually. And this was something commissioned by PsyOps. And let me go open up his DM off screen. Because remember, everyone, it's not polite to sit there and take a private DM and then go show it on a stream. But let's see here. Let me make sure I got the story correct. Call him out. Let's see here. Clip it. I gotta say that after each one. It's like garlic. You gotta say clip it so that way it doesn't get clipped. And then he'll clip it now out of spite. Anyways, this was made by Miles. These were. And actually I will show a little bit of PsyOps DM with me because it shows more of them. There's actually 6 of them. And here's the first one. Here's the second one. It's just a Ukrainian soldier playing a piano, but it is amazing in detail and quality. And I'm just blown away. And so, with that, thank you so much once again for the support, PsyOps. And I hope we showed that fairly well. Let me make sure to flip that back over to the DM with me and Matthew right there. And with that, we are going to be moving on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support, PsyOps. And also, those were amazing. And I have to say, great quality. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to David L. He puts in a $10 donation and sadly does not leave a comment for us to address. But big thanks to you, David, and we do appreciate you helping to keep the lights on and also to keep Enforcer snacking like he's apparently doing over there right now.
Ricola. It's a
Ricola. Well, it keeps him stocked up with Ricolas. But thank you very much, David. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from CK Bold. And thank you for the support as well. CK says, take a live chat question. And of course, we will take a live chat. And CK's question goes to Dale Alaticus, who says, do they smoke carelessly on the spy ships as they did on the Moscow?
Yes, they do. They do, bleed. Because Russians very incompetent people. You see, Evan, if I smoke on board smoke me, bleed. And then the boat blows up. But yes, I would have a feeling they probably smoke on the spy ships as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that question fairly well. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And I got to add some context to those pictures we just showed from PsyOps that were commissioned by Miles. He said this soldier was playing the orchestra with the orc emphasized. Very clever.
That's clever. Really good. Actually, I like that.
Yes. I had to call it out too.
And
very clever.
Also, Matthew, I was just thinking we have to circle back to something real quick. You said originally, you were thanking them for the support because it helps me to keep on snacking over here, and I was actually getting a Ricola. I mean, snacking? What do you think we are? A squad of snackers? Come on.
Oh.
Call them out. Clip it. But with that,
them out.
But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And he sure has been quiet recently. I wonder
too quiet, really. I'm waiting for something.
He needs to liven back up again. I'm like, need some excitement going on here.
Everybody's
Everybody's no, we don't want the excitement.
Yeah, I don't really want the excitement, but at the same time, I've gotten so used to the scheduled rhythm of BS that I'm kind of like I'm expecting it, but it hasn't happened.
I want all the smoke.
Yeah, we want the smoke. We want those meats smoked.
No cap.
on God, no cap. We want that thing smoked. But yeah, we're kind of that's kind of interesting. Anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from PsyOps, and this is a imposter. This is not PsyOps as in the one that we know and love. This is like Psy, as in like Ops, who says the U.S. has sensitive nuclear technology at a nuclear power plant inside Ukraine and is warning Russia not to touch it, according to a letter that the U.S. Department of Energy sent to Russia, warning.
I'm sorry, I don't think I actually understood that one. Could you break it down for me real quick?
He's saying, this is like the poll topic we ran on the other night. He's saying that there's some sensitive technology that the U.S. has inside the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, and the U.S. told Russia, don't touch it, don't dare touch it. And I'm not sure what the question is. I think it was more of a statement.
Interesting. Well, I thank you so much for sharing that with us, and we did look at that, I believe, last night. And so with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And I'm going to channel to keep on running. You're not the PsyOps we know, but you are a PsyOps that we now know. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from John Galt. He says, Enforcer Matt doing a great job, but trust but verify is a wise ways to go. And I would agree completely. Trusting but verifying is a good way to go. Personally, me, I will say I start off in the default mode of distrust. I think that's a better way to approach it. That allows you to approach from a skeptical point of view. So you're asking a lot of questions, and that way you don't get fooled. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say largely the same thing when it comes to information. And I have a feeling that's a problem with a lot of the modern world, is that a lot of people take things at face value because it's a lot more convenient to do that than otherwise, because a lot of people will go out there and they'll watch a clickbait channel that says Turkey has entered the war in Ukraine's side, and then they just take that for what it is. And, and then folks come over here and they go, oh, Turkey's joined the war. And then I go, what? No, they haven't joined the war. There's no proof of that. And then they go ballistic. So I would certainly back up the idea that one has to be kind of a little bit more diligent in gathering up their information and sources, and that's why we back ours up with video and picture evidence. Now, that hasn't stopped people from coming in here and trying to say that we're lying about things or our titles are clickbait, although we always have a video or picture evidence to back up our title and thumbnail. But I guess that's just part of being on YouTube, is that people are going to call it that. But I feel like we go through more efforts on this channel than most other channels to prove what we say by showing video and picture evidence that backs it up. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Trister1. He says it was a premature encounterlation. And that sounds kind of like a medical condition.
That does. Viagra. But anyways, with that, thank you for
That's something a doctor would say.
Oh man, I'm telling you. I went to the doctor the other day. I told him, hey doctor, I got a problem. He said, oh yeah? Well, you got a problem getting it up? I said, oh yeah, every morning. I hate going to work. Oh man, it's terrible.
But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Thank you for the support. I hope that did address it fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope that did address that fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. I'm sorry, I get caught on like a broken record. The third time was deliberate, though. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Robin, who puts in a $10 donation and says, thanks for all you two do, and add this to Matt's car fund. And thank you very much, Robin, for the very kind words, and adding that to Matt's car fund, I am $10 closer to getting a lot of Neva. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support, and of course helping us to put something towards the car fund. Without support to the car fund, Matthew would not be able to have a car. And I thank you so much once again. And so with that, hope we addressed that fairly well. And also, I like how that bot said, if you can't do this without donations, then who's making money of a war? Oh, yeah, like the non-profit people, right, who work at Doctors Without Borders. I guess they don't deserve to get paid, right? Like they just need to do whatever, just starve to death or something. I mean, who in the world, what in the world these bots make these silly statements for? We always have sat there and said, folks, help this channel to keep on running through y'all support, because we do this as a job. This is the only way we can support ourselves. And then people come in and act like they're getting to the bottom of something. Man, I feel like we're on CNN or Fox News right now with this. Like they're pointing out something obvious that's been known since day one and acting like they're getting to the bottom of something. Lame. And speaking of which, what type of name was that? Is that supposed to be like a rip-off name of Kim Jong-un or something like that? Rene de Jong? Like, what the hell? Anyways, with that, we're going to let them rain on their jong, and with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and let's see real quick here. Let me check something. Hey, Zeus, I don't see the $10 super chat you're talking about. I don't know if maybe I missed it or what, but feel free to @Enforcer Matt, and I'll add it to the spreadsheet, because apparently I missed it. But up next, we have a $10 super chat from Mace. And no comment to address, but Mace, thank you very much for the very generous support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much once again for the support. You didn't leave a comment, but the support does help us keep this thing rolling. And without y'all support, We wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We do this as a full-time job, Matthew. Me do. I do it more than a full-time job would be in hours. And I thank you so much for helping us to make that possible. Because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep the gears running behind the scenes to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Sharon Flynn, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, "But I read on the interwebs, it must be true."
Well, it must be true if you read it on the internet. Nothing's ever wrong on the internet. I'm sure we can pull up all kinds of stuff that is wrong on the internet. Hell, it doesn't even matter if you're on the internet anymore. It's spread to the mainstream news. It just another group settled for $700 and something million the other day for spreading a lie about something. You know, not going to go into who it was or anything, and they're not the first. Well, actually, we'll just say who it was. It was Fox. They got sued, and they settled for, like, what, $750 million US dollars?
It was big.
It was huge.
It seemed like they would have wanted to go to trial, but they decided to settle because I guess they didn't want their anchors to testify.
And also, that isn't the first time that's happened. That's happened a lot with CNN. It's happened a decent amount with Fox, too. This is probably the biggest one that's happened with them. And it just shows you how much people are out there just saying straight up misinformation. I don't even know why people really believe these folks anymore. Because, and you know, people are gonna like here's one thing I know that happens with it whenever CNN or whatever happens. Like, these people settled. That is a out of court agreement that they made saying, okay, we're gonna do this without taking it to trial. Which means that Fox News already knew that they were guilty to the point that if it went to trial, they were probably going to pay out even more than that. Way more than that, and so they went with $750 million. But how that's going to be phrased by most people is that somehow someone that's against them got to them and screwed them out of that money, although they agreed to give it away. And that shows how badly they lied on that, because if they knew what they were saying was true and they had verifiable proof to back it up, they would have been able to get to court and never have paid a cent. Just like CNN has not been able to either whenever they go out of their way to defame certain people, and then those people go and sue them because they defamed them and ruined their lives, and then they get tens of millions or hundreds of millions out of them. You know, folks are lying all over the place, and those are probably the best examples because it ends up actually costing these people a massive amount of money. Funnily enough, even though $750 million is a massive amount, and I'll probably never even see that, and most of viewers of this channel will probably never even see that over the course of their entire lives, that is a very small part of the income of Fox Entertainment over the course of a quarter. Fox Entertainment makes something like $5 billion per quarter, and so that's small. Well, that's a sizable chunk of a quarter, but a small part of their yearly revenue. So with that, hope that addresses that fairly well. Once again, can't always trust everything out there, and if something sounds insane, it probably is, no matter who it's coming from. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Trister1 yet again. He puts in a $10 super chat and says, "I think it's a mistake to set expectations that the counteroffensive will be like Kharkiv or Kherson. As a future leader, it will look like it was planned, and then how it was realized."
And I thank you for the support, and that is a good point to bring up. However, I'm always into precedents, and if the Ukrainians have laid out a precedent over 2 counteroffensives, the only 2 they've ever conducted, where it was a rapid, lightning-fast attack covering a dozen miles a day nearly, that is the precedent we go with. Because then we fall into the realm of experts who sit there and go, I'm feeling kind of a little fancy this week. I'm going to say they only move a mile a day. Like, what's the precedent? You know, like, I always back up everything I say with a precedent. And right now, the Ukrainians have laid out over the whole war 2 precedents. There's never been anything to contradict those 2 to show that it could be different. And so going off of those, we would have to assume that this next upcoming counteroffensive would be as rapid and as successful as the first 2 were. But still, you have a good point. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mace yet again, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, "I think we should exile Putin to North Sentinel Island."
Bless you.
Excuse me. "I think we should exile Putin to North Sentinel Island, west of India. It is a lovely vacation spot for someone like him. Give him a pair of shorts and t-shirt and give him raft and let him go ashore."
Let's see. Here it is, North Sentinel Island.
Hey, goodness.
Bless you, my boy. Bless you.
Excuse me.
Bless you and be merry. But here's North Sentinel. It's not that far, actually, from a populated living island. And this is what's weird about it, is that there's people over here who are actually living in cellular jail, What the hell is this? Wow, that's wild.
It's a cellular gel.
Look, guys, it's a cellular gel. Does it really look like that from the sky? Oh, it would have at one point, but they destroyed some of it. But it would have had like all the little prongs on it. That is wild, actually. But anyways, moving on from that, past this populated island that actually has modern civilization on it, just a few miles offshore is the North Sentinel Island. It doesn't look like it's that far, actually, maybe 20 miles away. So just right over the horizon for the people living on the North Sentinel. But these people really have very little idea of what there is beyond their own island. And that would be a very interesting vacation spot for La Putina. I don't think you would have a fun time on North Sentinel, but hey, great vacation spot and beautiful beaches. Funnily enough, Matthew, a ship crashed on that island, I believe, in the 1980s. And since there was no natural source of iron or steel on that island, when the ship started breaking up due to the sea, constantly eroding it, it actually propelled the North Sentinels into the Iron Age instead of being in the Stone Age like they had been the entire time.
Well, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, so now they actually have iron tools and stuff. So it's like, wow, that's cool. Next thing we need to do is we need to give them like bronze or something and see about making like recreating the history of the Earth on this small island.
You know, something I've never noticed, like zoom back in for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have 2023 Google floating all around this island.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's crazy. 2023 Google is going to invade this island in the future.
Man, like North Sentinel Island may be by itself, but Google is like right next door. Man, they have some thick foliage right there.
Yeah, Thorne said, "Is it blurred out?" No, that's just how thick the foliage is. And it's a canopy literally. And that's actually crazy. It does look like it's blurred out from afar, but when you zoom in, nope, that is raw tree canopy right there. You just can't see the ground through any of it. But once we get closer to the beach, though, you can see that it breaks off, and you can actually see the beach itself. The ship
That's some nice water. Jeez, that's blue.
I know it's pristine. Like, it's a pristine island, completely untouched by modern hands. But interestingly enough, during the Second World War, there was, I believe, a small skirmish that actually did happen somewhere near or on this island. But I can't really remember if it happened on this one or not. So that may have been a small experience these people had with the outside world, and then since then, nothing else has happened. Anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support and bringing up a very interesting thing about this modern world. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to John Bartley, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, "Long-time listener, but first-time caller. If we can move past whether or not the offensive has started, what do you feel will be the first primary objective and the secondary objectives?"
I feel like the primary objective will be to take Melitopol, and secondary objectives will be to start advancing towards the Chonhar Peninsula in Armyansk, and also to start moving on towards Berdyansk as well. I feel like those would be the secondary objectives, but the primary one would be to split the Russian lines in two by driving a wedge down into Melitopol. That's what I would think would happen, but once again, that's just my guess, and that may not be the case. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Super Creech, who puts in a $10 donation and says, "When is your guess on the start of the counteroffensive, and what would you hit first? Would you hit the Kerch Bridge first, and then three-prong into Crimea? You guys are awesome, and keep up the good work. SU."
And thank you so much for the support. And to answer that question, I would say the counteroffensive will be happening probably soon, because it right now is in between our original window of mid-April to late May. And we're getting towards the later part of April, but we haven't even entered May yet, so there is still a good possibility it could happen. And I think that that they won't be striking the Kerch Bridge, but I do think they will certainly advance towards Melitopol. I'm not going to say specifically how or where, but they will take Melitopol. That will be the goal in their direction. It'll probably just be a one-pronged attack, because that's very simple logistically to support and very easy to pull off. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because y'all support counts. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Sick Lid, who puts in a $10 donation and says, 308 jets shot down. Russians are out of qualified pilots. Only old men and newbies are left.
And those old men and rookies, oh buddy, are they doing some damage to Belgorod? Hey man, I have to take a crap. Okay. That was not a crap, that was a bomb. Oh, I believe I pushed the wrong button. It was supposed
Man,
to
that was just his arthritis acting up.
Dude, imagine a pilot having a spasm and pushing the ejection button for the bomb. Oh
Man,
man.
what if the pilot has Tourette's? Jeez.
Oh, well, man, I can't do that joke, but yeah, I wonder, but still, that is correct. They don't really have a lot of good pilots left, and the ones that they're training are not that great either. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Psyops, who puts in a $10 donation and says this super chat is for all the super chats that have fallen in the name of comedy. Not naming names or pointing fingers. It's not like there's someone not reading my messages, and definitely not named Matt. Oh, and he read this one. Call him out. Call him out.
Call them out. And then they don't call anything out. Where's the punchline?
I guess they hung that whole thing up about calling him out. But anyways, I do say, Sipes, I do like to read all your super chats. They're quite nice, but some of them are so spicy and so crazy, I can't even read them off, or otherwise we might get canned. But thank you very much, Sipes, for supporting the channel. And of course, we all know it's in good humor. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support, Sipes. And of course, it is in good humor. And I thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, because you've been supporting us for quite a while. And without your support, Sipes, you've been a massive supporter of this channel. It wouldn't have been possible for us to get this far. So I thank you so much once again for support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Commander COVID-19, who puts in a $10 donation and says the Republic of China once held the UN Security Council permanent veto, and how come they didn't just veto the PRC from usurping their seat in Slava Ukraine?
Wait, reread that one again?
The Republic of China once held the UN Security Council permanent veto, and how come they didn't just veto the PRC from usurping their seat? Slava Ukraine.
I believe that was actually a UN decision that did not involve the Republic of China. I don't know how they work that, but that is a good... Wait a minute, hang on, let me think. When was the UN founded? When was the UN founded? In 1945, so it would have been the Republic of China. It's interesting. I don't know how in the world they did that, and I'm going to have to be honest with you. I'm going to declare ignorance on that one, because that topic sounds so in-depth, I'm probably going to have to do a good bit of research to find out how that happened. But still, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to JD Mako 23, who puts in a $10 super chat and says 4 out of 3 people struggle with math. And take a question from the chat, please, sirs. And I believe that statistic because, honestly, like, not just us, but math is a tough subject for most people in the country. Like, the people in the U.S. typically aren't good at math, but we're exceptionally bad at it. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I'm terrible at it. And also, I don't think you picked up on it, Matthew, is 4 out of every 3
I picked up on it.
Oh, okay, good. I'm like, Matthew, don't
Come on,
do it.
man.
No, they're going to burn you, man. They're going to burn you at the stake. But still, I thank you so much for the support, and I would certainly have to back that up. We're not good at math at all. I'm terrible at math. And I have a huge respect for people who are good at math, because it is something I could never get down. But still, thank you so much once again for support, and we will make sure to get that live chat.
All right, and the live chat goes to, let's see here, let me go up to the top. It goes to Dakota DeBear, who says, you guys see United Kingdom's new drone with 2 guided rockets attached to it.
I did.
And I did. It was pretty cool. They had the thing on a leash, believe it or not, while they were testing it. But it fired those rockets off and it barely flinched. I can't remember what it's called.
The Jackal.
The Jackal, that's it.
Jackal drone. Let me go to it. Let me get the video. Boss. Okay, so I'm gonna have to mute it and drag it over here. But here's a video of the Jackal in action. So there's the thing. It takes off. They got that thing on a leash. So it takes on off, and it's got 2 Martlet missiles on it. So it's lining up the shot, and they'll fire here in a second. See them doing some testing with it and just making sure it moves around right. Now when you see it firing the Martlet missiles.
Look at him hiding behind those bricks.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they don't really trust it much yet. But there it goes. It fired the first one, which made it
Damn.
jiggle. That is a massive missile to be fired from a drone like that. And we can actually see it firing right there. Now, I gotta tell you, that thing would change the face of warfare forever.
That thing looks like it is like in early development, though. Like, it does not look practical.
Yes, very early development, but still a very interesting system. And so, I would have to thank you so much once again for support and bringing that thing up. Because it is a very interesting vehicle, and I think that there is potential for drones like that in the future to be used on the battlefield. And it appears that the British are definitely spearheading doctrinal developments based off of what's been happening in Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to CK Bold, who puts in another $10 super chat and says Henry Kissinger gets no respect. Ha ha ha. Oh, yeah, Henry Kissinger, he gets no respect around here. He said to his mother, he said, am I getting any respect? And she said, no, you're not from me.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, when he was born, no one was around to witness his birth, not even his parents. Oh, man, it was terrible. He won a Nobel Peace Prize, but this man is not peaceful. Oh, no, he's not. Oh, man, I'm telling you, the guy's not a good guy, not a good fella. I'm telling you, I don't like his ideas. They make no sense, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here, and every time I say it, people go, hey, he's a good guy. But then he says silly stuff about Ukraine, like they should surrender. Oh, man, I'm telling you. And then he finally changes his ideas after being browbeaten. I'm telling you, if his ideas were right, why would he even change them? Oh, man, it's telling me he doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, man, he's just trying to keep on the popular opinion. Oh, man. But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the guy, to be honest with you.
But you know, back in the day though, when he was working in his prime, he did do good things. But recently, it seems like he's trying to stay relevant because he wants to stay in the spotlight, and he's making some really poor statements, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he's just trying to go with wherever the wind blows. He's like, oh, let me just pick whatever the prevailing wind is and go with that today. But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the guy for that. I know I'm not gonna bash him. Yeah, he's done some good stuff in his life. But nowadays, not so much. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Rocco World Domination, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, do you ever listen to interviews with Julia Luff? She is an expert on Russian affairs, and she explains very well the working of Putler's mind. Igor and Slav Ukraine.
I haven't actually heard of this person. Let's pull him up. Julia Wolf? Like Wolf?
Loff. Loffe.
Loaf. Let's check him out. What do we got here? Let's see. Washington appeared in and the Atlanta appeared on television, other news channels. She is the Washington correspondent for the website Puck. Man, the stocks just crashed. Puck. But anyways, let's see here. I would have to read a little bit more about her because this seems to be pretty extensive here. Let's see. Coverage on Russia. I have to read up a little bit on her because I don't really know a lot about her. But I'll be trying to look into it and see about it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $6 super chat and says, I love this LSA community and hello to everyone. I can't keep up saying hi personally because it's hard typing the @names quick enough. @Enforcer Matt, how do you do it? And that's because I'm over here with about 3 or 4 different screens open, and also I've gotten in the habit of going really fast. But thank you, Margaret, for the support, and also you'll get the hang of it too if you do it every night, day in and day out. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support, Margaret. And Matthew and me are like in a race in the first 10 minutes to try and say hello to everyone. And we hope people enjoy that because we try and make sure to say hey when we can. And really the first 10 minutes is really the only time we can say hey. But yes, it is quite a process. But we've gotten used to it over time. And we've just learned how to speed type, really. That's really what's helped us out the most. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support and appreciating our ability to say hello to everyone and put in the @ for their names. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again, Margaret, for keeping this channel in mind and helping us to keep this thing rolling.
And next up, big shout out to Jackie Ward, who puts in a $5 super chat and does not leave a comment. But thank you, Jackie, for the support and helping to keep us running. And like Magic Sky Girl said, Totoro, Totoro.
Totoro, Totoro.
And with that being said, we're on to our next one, which goes to Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a $5 donation and says, just pretend that the decimal isn't here and give a holy moly like I'm a rich guy, lols. Instead of the chat, take a question from Matt. Should be interesting.
Holy moly! And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel keep on running. That support does help us keep this thing rolling. And I got to thank you so much once again for helping those lights to keep on, because it's not a $500 super chat, it's just a $5 one. But $5 goes a long way in helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to thank you so much for even supporting us at all. It means a lot to us whether someone puts in $1 or $500. It means as much to us that people just find it worthwhile to support us at all. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and we will be making sure to get to a live chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and you said take a question from me. Should be interesting. A question I would have is a question that I share with Richard Rohde. He says, if Lavrov visits New York, can he be arrested? Very good question.
Matthew, you're so stupid. I'm just kidding.
Well, damn, son.
No, I'm playing into that joke, Matthew, where people sit there and say, oh, he treats his brother terribly. It's like, no, I don't. Well, at least I don't think so. Do I, Matthew? Tell him no.
Tell him, punk. Tell him.
You feeling lucky, punk?
But let's see. Wait, what was the question again?
The question is, because he got all messed up because I called him the punk. The question is, Richard Rohde, he says, if Lavrov visits New York, can he be arrested?
No, I don't think so, because we're issuing him visa. We're probably not going to arrest the guy. We technically could, but I feel like we probably wouldn't. And so with that,
He's getting a credit card?
credit card?
Yeah, the visa?
Oh, yeah, he's getting a visa. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Matthew, now, if we have another cringe joke like that again, we're going to have to get a new Matthew.
Man, put the shotgun down.
I've been waiting to do that. I had to figure out how to do it. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and sponsoring a question from Matthew. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping us to keep this thing rolling.
All right. And also, I'll say that Lavrov will never get arrested, even if they wanted to, because that would have consequences that we would not want. And I know some folks are going to say, well, who cares what Russia does? But, you know, in actuality, we can't operate like that, because they could decide to kill Evan over there in Russia, or they could decide to start torturing him, and we don't want that. Simply over making a symbolic gesture.
Or other countries could start to decide to step in, like the Chinese, and then we don't just have a Russian issue, now we've got a worldwide issue.
Yeah, don't want to cause unfortunate events to happen. But anyways, up next, we have a $5 super chat from David L., who says, better days ahead of you for Enforcer.
And thank you so much for the support. And there are hopefully better days ahead of me. Hopefully I haven't peaked already. And so thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because of course y'all support counts and does help this thing to keep on rolling. Without y'all, it wouldn't have been possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Roy CC07, who puts in a $5 donation and says, please and thanks, look up Ukrinform article titled Ukraine Not to Announce Counteroffensive, Certain Actions Already Underway, from the Deputy Defense Minister.
And I thank you for the support. I believe we've actually read that quote already. And they said that plans were underway for the counteroffensive. And that also, once again, plays into the statement right there that you just read, that they're not going to be announcing when the counteroffensive actually begins. They're just saying that the plans are underway, but the counteroffensive has not actually begun. So for that reason, we can be very certain that the counteroffensive has not begun. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to John C., who puts in a $5 donation and says, question, the Wagner Group is throwing their weight behind one of the sides in the fighting in Sudan, and could this be the next proxy war?
Let's see, throwing their weight. Next proxy war?
Lightweight.
That really depends. Wait a minute, say what?
Lightweight.
Yeah, that really depends, because you see, Sudan isn't really a country worth fighting for, at least at the moment. And it's really a question whether anyone will really get involved, because there's nothing there. There's nothing really there economically or anything like that to make it worthwhile to actually go in there. So It may actually change things. It may actually do that because no one will really pay attention to it. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Landlubber, who puts in a $5 donation and does not leave a comment. And Landlubber, thank you very much for your support to the channel, and also thank you for being a very long-time channel viewer as well. And with that being said, we also have a super chat from JC Atkins, who puts in a 5 and says, "Sorry for the small donation. I'm an outnumbered newspaper man, and none of us in this industry makes enough. And keep up the great work."
And I thank you for the support. And also very interesting to hear you work in a newspaper and you're helping us to keep this thing running. I completely understand. And we're just appreciative of anyone who supports the channel, whether it be $1, $5, $10, $50, $20. It means a lot to us that people just find it worthwhile to support it all, because y'all do help us to keep this thing rolling. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing going. Now, one thing I don't really know about is, does the stream make a lot of AdSense if an ad's run? Because we've never run ads on a stream before. I think we only ran it on one, and then we turned them off immediately. In fact, I turned them off like within the hour of the stream running, because I think I clicked on the stream during the stream ad ran, and then I was like, screw this, and I turned them off. So I don't really know how much AdSense there even is really for a stream like this, because on a normal YouTube video, you can choose to play mid-roll ads that play in the middle of the video instead of just the beginning and the end. And I don't know how that works with live streams, that an ad plays every 4 or 5 minutes or something. I don't really know. But regardless, we'll never know, because we'll never run an ad on a stream. And it's thanks to support like yours that $5 Super Chat does help us to make sure that we'll never run an ad on these streams. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope that does address that fairly well. We are very grateful for the $5. And with that, did he want a live chat?
And no.
All right, and so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Dark Warrior 137 once again, who puts in another $5 super chat. And thank you very much for the support. He says, "I get no respect at all." Wait a minute. "I get no respect. I get no respect at all. Yesterday I told a man I support Ukraine, but instead he just says bliad and grabs an AK. Oh man, it's terrible. It's terrible." And question for the chat.
Oh man, I'm telling you, it's terrible. The man, he pulled out an AK. That's a shotgun. Oh man, I'm telling you. And he blasted me. Blew me away. Oh man. It wasn't the kind of blowing I liked. Oh man, not at all. Oh, terrible. Terrible.
I'm doing that. That's not me actually saying that. I'm in the character of Rodney Dangerfield, because his jokes were pretty edged for the most part. It makes it really hard to do his voice because he can't do his jokes. But anyways, we will make sure to grab a live chat. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, "Why did U.S. officials back off on keeping Lavrov away from the UN, and was a reason for this given?"
We haven't heard a reason yet. The most likely reason is that they need the UN proceedings to continue, and it was more of just a symbolic thing to do than something that was ever meant to mean anything. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for sponsoring the live chat.
And the next one goes to Craig Platel, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, "In reference to the mortar initiation, standing on base plate to help seed it into the ground is fairly common, depending on the soil and the mortar caliber."
And I thank you for the support and sharing that with us. That is really interesting to hear. And I believe we've done that before in the reenacting world. Oh, he's a LARPer. He's a Civil War LARPer. And then I don't ever do Civil War, so that's just untrue and politically skewed for reasons. Y'all don't know how stupid of a comment that was to me, because that, if y'all know anything about reenacting and how it's viewed by the general public, like if you want to have a certain political connotation brought up about reenactors, people who do want that, they just call you a Civil War LARPer or something like that. And most people in reenacting now don't do Civil War, so it's like you're just an ass. Anyways, clip it, please. I beg of you. Clip it. But anyways, moving on from that. I would say that I think we've done that in reenacting before with our Stokes mortar, but I can't really remember because it's been a while since I've been on that Stokes mortar. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And Gus BS said, "LARPer encountered," and yeah, I'm a LARPer. Oh, like, you know, does anyone know what LARP really stands for? You know, it stands for live action roleplay, and I think in reenacting, I think the most cringe thing that everyone agrees about in reenacting is pretending like you really are from that era. Like, we find that to be really cringe. At least my group does. Like we just sit there and say they would have worn this stuff and we're wearing it. Yeah, I mean, like that's just ridiculous. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley. Let's see here. I'm trying to figure out, is this Jesse person a bot, or is that a generous statement?
Wait, which one?
This Jesse Whitmore?
Oh no, that's just a statement.
Oh, okay. Yeah, looked interesting there for a minute. It looks spicy. But the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley yet again, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, I've been through the towns of Burkoppen, Kellerberrin, Bungula, and Kunderen today, now in the Meckering earthquake zone. Have fun with those names, Matt. And I did.
And the Simpsons have a desert named after them? No way. That does not look like Bart Simpson. That does not. We got people out here taking doing fit checks. Let's see. Another fit check. Fit check. Nice. That's all there are a lot of fit checks going on in the Simpson Desert. But anyways, I think you're talking about that road trip in Australia again, and really cool to hear that you've gotten that far. And some really cool names out there in Australia as well. And so with that, I guess that's our cue to move on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Craig Platel, who puts in a $5 donation and says, Fabs use impact, meaning nose, and inertia/impact tail fuses, so should be armed in flight.
So it should be armed in flight instead of just armed on the plane. Hopefully I'm understanding it right, but I thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that with us, because then that means they would have deliberately dropped the bomb on Belgorod. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Jesus UCSB. He says, Enforcers, is there a taqueria by your house? I will be sending you tacos, the carne asada, on graduation day. I guess so.
Carne asada. Oh man, that's what you say when someone's sat down. They asada. Oh man. But still, thank you so much for the support. We would love some carne asada. I don't think we have a taqueria near our house. I gotta make sure to try and get the names right. But still, thank you once again for the support and also the offer. That was a very kind offer as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And you allow people with Slava Russia in your name. Yeah,
did you see that clown?
When asking you not to joke, go F yourself.
Why in the world are you
that guy was a clown.
Why in the world are you asking us not to joke? It's our show. We're going to joke as much as we want. Yeah, and we allow...
get the hell out of here if you don't like it. Jeez.
And we allow that guy in here. We allow the Russian in here because the Russian's pro-Ukrainian. What, are you going to have a problem with everything now? What are you? One of those...
Oh, man. Oh, man, he sounds like a Nazi. Oh, man, I'm telling you. You could be on his side, but if he doesn't like you, you get shot. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, that's terrible.
But anyways, we are on to the next one. That was silly, though.
Could you imagine the audacity? Like, I couldn't even imagine that. Like, I go on my Enforcer Matt account and go over to somebody else's stream and start critiquing and telling them what they can and can't talk about on it. I would feel like an idiot.
I don't know why people think that. It's like I don't know what people think this is. Do you think it's a McDonald's? Like you can just come in here and ask for your order to be different? It's a show. I run the show. This show will run how it runs. I don't know why people actually just come in here and tell us how to run our show. I mean, if you want to run a show, you're more than happy to. I mean, you can go run your own and not joke. But on this show, we joke. Because I joke.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. I've been doing this for
But the real joke is Marcel. He's the joke.
Apparently so. He's a pretty funny guy. Real funny. But yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And I don't get why people act like that's rude to say either. It's like, yeah, it's our show. We are going to run the show how we run it. I mean, if you don't like it, find another one or run your own. You know, it's like, that's the options. I'm not changing the show for one person. And then people sit there. Another thing that people say is that the show has changed. And I can promise you this. Rather than our audio quality, this show has not changed for 421 days straight. It's the same show now that it was 421 days ago for the large part. So, you know, he can cry about it or something. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Philip Fixes. He says, based on prior gains, could Ukraine reach Sevastopol in a dagger offensive, go straight for the throat and call the nuclear bluff, and can't use a destroyed port?
Now, they wouldn't be able to do that immediately from their current front lines, but they could do that once they get to the Ukrainian border, although that is a long distance. I believe that's something about 90 to 100 miles, and it would be really hard for them to race down there that quickly, because their offensives usually cover about 50 miles, so that would be more so the length of 2 counteroffensives instead of just the 1. So, highly unlikely, but still possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dubber Bob, and he puts in a Slav Ukraine and Hiram Slova. And thank you very much, Dupper, for the support. And with that being said, we have a $2 super chat from Not a Teacher. And I'm not sure why they're so inclined to say they're not a teacher, but very interesting.
Well, for all legal reasons, I'm not a bartender.
Yes. They say, shout out to... what does that mean? That kind of raised a red flag for some reason. Let me send that over to the enforcer for review.
Let me put down the Mossy 500. Let me go get to the Discord here. What do we got here?
You see it?
I don't know why, but that is throwing up a red flag. We're gonna give this one a benefit of a doubt, Matthew, and we're gonna read it. So please, by all means.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, please.
You're gonna tell me to read it.
Happy birthday! It's yours, Matthew. It's a present to you.
No, I'm not reading that.
Oh,
that sounds suggestive.
It does sound pretty suggestive to me. That may be why this guy is not a teacher. I'm just kidding. But that's a tough one. I was hoping Matthew would read it off, so that way at least there would be like an EOD thing in between me and in the chat. But we're gonna read it out. Shout out to, you know what? I'm gonna pull this thing up off screen because it says it's in Auburn. 1 second. I'm trying to pull it up right now.
Man, I don't know what's going on in Auburn.
I can't find this thing, so I don't.
No, there's no such thing as that.
No, I don't think this thing exists. Sadly, we won't be able to read it off because that thing does not exist. But I thank you so much for the support, Not a Teacher, in helping this channel to keep on running. Because while we cannot read that off, it was funny, and so that we're on to the next one. Thank you once again.
Oh, let's see real quick. I thought somebody explained it, but actually they were explaining something else. But anyways, this one goes to Nadav Ben Shlomo, who puts in a 60
60 shekels.
Let's see, shekels. That's a shekel. And Nadav says, "Hi, enforcers from Ramat Aviv in Israel. Love your work, and I listen to it while working, and Slav Ukraine." And that's really cool to hear. You're in Israel, and thank you very much for the support, and also for supporting the channel.
And here's Ramat Aviv. Here's some pictures of it, actually. And they got this, like, drill bit thing? A shower thing? I don't know what that is, but it doesn't look like that bad of a place. What's this?
Food.
Oh, man, I'm hungry right now, too, man. Like, I'm always hungry at this point in the stream. You know, they don't call me fat bastard for nothing. But it's being a little harsh on myself. People are like, oh, he's nice. But anyway, oh, look at this. Wow, that is a lot of fruit. Oh, my gosh, they got everything. Wow.
Oh, they even got Coke.
You know what's
Coca-Cola.
crazy, though? You know what you don't see in fruit markets in Israel is dragon fruit.
Oh, yeah, who needs that stuff? That's, like, weird fruit.
Yeah, I don't really like it that much, honestly. It tastes like an armpit mixed with the hint of fruit.
Ugh.
Like, the fruits they have here are better, in my opinion.
There's some exotic-looking cleaning supplies up there, too.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is something. And it's right near the beach, too. Look at that. Like, you get done hanging out here, you go to the beach. But still, I mean, pretty neat, pretty cool.
Is it still heating up over there in Israel, or are things calming down?
Yeah, hopefully it's not heating up or anything, because, you know, it has been pretty, I guess you say, difficult down there. Not talking about the situation in Israel or anything in particular, but has been pretty heated. Hopefully it's getting better for y'all down there. But still, I thank you so much once again Nadav, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And it's really cool to know that people all around the world, including in Israel, are watching this channel and enjoying it, because I think it's wonderful to know that there's people from literally everywhere in the world who are watching this channel. Because it's so neat to know everyone who's watching this and to hear the backstories of folks and where they're from and everything. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And what does a place like this look like? Because you don't really hear of a lot of greener looking places in Israel. So what is this? Really? Dude, this kind of looks like England.
It does. It really does.
It kind of does.
Looks like the road leading up to Huntsville in Alabama a little bit.
That is so weird. You wouldn't expect that. And that also the signs appear to be in English, Arabic, and in Hebrew, from top to bottom. That's really cool. That's kind of like the road signs in Wales, you know, how they would be in Welsh and English.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was wild. And I remember the first time we saw that sign, even I, who knew what Welsh was, I was confused about what Welsh was. And I was like, that is not English. And then it finally clicked, oh, that's Welsh. What's this? Now I'm interested in everything. The Leia House. I don't know what the Leia House is. It appears to be like a swimming hole or something like that. What does it explain?
A swimming hole.
A historical place. Well, I mean, it kind of does. It just looks like a swimming hole.
Wait a minute. Go down on the little listing. Live, it says busier than usual. It's like the people are off the charts.
the dude Arrow just shows up for an hour and then leaves.
What is getting like raided by a militia or something like that? It's busier than usual right now. It's like a red line.
the IDF and the Palestinian Hamas are currently fighting over that area right now. So they're like, it's got more activity than normal.
Yeah.
But they ain't swimming, I'll tell you that. But let's see. What are the reviews on this place? The water is a little dirty. Okay, packed and a bit underwhelming.
It's like a river or something, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just a
stream?
river. Let's see. Beautiful location for coffee. I just wish someone would explain to me why this is supposed to be a historical place. I don't really know why. So kind of disgusting looking water. Aaron keeps on saying the water doesn't look that good. I mean, honestly, in these pictures, that water kind of looks like Coosa River water in Alabama.
Oh,
it doesn't,
man, that
but
Coosa River water would
is
ruin some
contaminated.
clothes.
Yeah, I mean, like, that stuff reeks. I don't know what it is with that water, but it reeks. So it doesn't look that bad. It's just that it is kind of brown, I guess, you know, and I guess some people aren't into that. I'm not into it, honestly. But it doesn't look that bad still. Man, honestly, I wish we could make a stream one day. Like, I have a dream that one day we can just make a stream where we talk about, like, countries and look at them and stuff. Because it's really cool.
Wait. Oh, zoom back out a little bit.
What? Where?
You see that city right there in the middle?
Peter,
Tikva.
Peter, the Tikva's here.
What is this place? Oh, wow. It's actually really, like...
Oh, wow.
Really
Peter's
posh.
looking pretty nice.
Peter, we hit money. We hit pay debt.
Yeah, global
Dang.
towers.
Global towers. But wow, this is a really nice place. Oh, look, we got man, I don't know what this is. This guy riding a
in the world is
motorcycle.
that?
It's a cool monument though. To something. I don't know what it is, but wow, man, this place is growing. And this is not here. That's like Switzerland or something. No, that's not there.
What?
This is Venice. What is up with these pictures? I don't know what's up with some of the pictures, but this place does not look bad. I gotta tell you, man, it's always crazy to look at foreign countries because a lot of them look so much more modern than what a lot of people would lead you to think here in America. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And Magic Sky Girl said, where's the Peter
Let me
voice
pull up-
from?
let
And
me-
it's from Family Guy.
Hang on, let me just pull up the clip. I know we won't probably get copyrighted for it.
Peter, the horse is here.
Here we go. Hopefully I can get the quick one. Alright, so I'm gonna have to play it off screen, just the audio. Oh, one second, I gotta unmute it.
Peter, the horse is here.
And that's the audio. That's where it's from. That's our joke. It's
Peter, the Twitter's here.
and all that stuff. We just interchange it, but that's where it comes from. It's that voice line. And so with that, I hope we answered that one fairly well. We are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $4 super chat from Margaret Hemsley, who says, trivia question, which Aussie animal poops cubes?
The capybara.
And the answer is wombats poop cubes to communicate.
Really?
Yes.
I thought it was. Wait a minute. Hang on. Capybara. Poop. Cube.
That's tough.
Oh crap! Wait a minute. It is a wombat. I'm sorry. I thought the wombat was a capybara. I'm sorry, because they kind of look a little similar in my head. Like, at least they look similar in my head until I look at it, and it's a totally different animal. But yes, I got that wrong. It is a wombat. I knew that somewhere in the back of my head. I knew that they pooped cubes. But now I don't. Now I'm wrong. So that is actually really interesting. I thank you so much once again for the support. And I got that so wrong. Though I will say this. I think capybaras are cooler looking. I pull up, and then you just got the capybara. So with that, thank you so much once again for support. Thank you for sharing a little bit of trivia with us on that. And with that, you're on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and with that being said, up next we have a $2 super chat from Grathawk, as well as a $1 super chat from Eric Shun. We also have a $2 super chat from Dupper Bob, as well as another $2 super chat from Dupper Bob. And he says, love Ukraine in both of them. And thank you very much for the continued support. And with that being said, we have a $2 super chat from Midget Hobbit, who says something that I'm a little bit scared to repeat, I must admit. But Midget Hobbit, thank you very much for the $2 support, and thank you for helping to get the channel running. And the next one we have is a $2 super chat from Sharon Flynn, who says, Pony Express is bring the rest of the footage.
What?
I don't know.
Well, I thank you for the support.
Pony Express is bring the rest of the footage.
Well, I thank you for the support. Pony Express was a really cool mail system we had here in America to try and get mail over large parts of the American frontier. It was part of the early postal service and a very famous part of the United States' early history. But I don't know about the rest of the video clips because I don't think they had VHS back in the era of the Pony Express. But still, I thank you for the support. I hope that addresses that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Slava Something, who says, hello, LSA, forgive my absence. I've been offline lately.
And it's okay. You are forgiven. Your sins are forgiven. Because it is okay whether you be here a day, a week, a year, or miss a day, a week, or a year. We're always happy to have everyone back. And we never hold it against anyone, ever. Although we do miss Seed Lane, Speed Break, amongst a whole bunch of others. We miss everyone who's gone, but we never hold it against them because life is life. And it is a very busy thing. I believe me, I have a very busy life myself over here. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And I gotta say, I got a little bit of a crack out of this one. The Observer said the wombats are skidding bricks. Literally.
Yeah, they are. Dude, Wombat gets scared and he goes, wait a minute. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, really. I need a house. Starts crafting everywhere.
I need. Someone called this man the bricklayer because he laying bricks. But the interesting fact about how the wombat does that is that they actually have a special bone in their tail that allows them to shape the poop into bricks.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's actually a cool little fun fact. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have another super chat from Slava Something, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, to answer the long-standing question, I come from a city called Artyom near Vladivostok. As I always said, I was from Vladivostok because it is easier.
Let's see here. Artyom near Vladivostok. Let me go over here.
Not Piranha.
Here it is. We found it. This is where the Russian is from. He's from here.
This is where they have the North Korean camps. Those nasty camps. They're so bad.
They're terrible. People have been saying that they're working them to death. I've got to be honest with you. I would work them a little bit beyond death. I would have them working so hard, nobody would be able to believe it. It's absolutely incredible. But it's not as bad as the chair that's having to work extra hard and it Rosie O'Donnell's fat butt cheeks to try to keep himself upright. It's pretty tough. But dang,
Rosie McDonald.
Artyom looks rough. There's literally weeds growing out of the top of this building. That's rough. But still, thank you for the support to the Russian and sharing with us that. I mean, they got some good flower beds here in the middle of the city, but that's about it. I mean, like, man, it's rough. But thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running and sharing with us an interesting part of your story about where you came from, which is Russia. The Russian is a Russian viewer, and he's, I think, one of the few we have, maybe like 1 out of 3 or so. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well.
And I've got to tell you, it only gets worse as you go further into town. It gets even terrible. Believe me. We can take a look around right here, and there's nothing but strip malls, hookers, and cocaine. Honestly, my favorite, but, you know, it is what it is. I love a good storm. I love a good storm and a Jack Daniels, if you know what I mean. It's absolutely incredible. I gotta tell you, the hush money has never been hushed up more. But still, that just went fairly well. We are on to the next one. And watch this, Matthew. Watch this. Knowing how it is in the modern day, we'll somehow get called out for that. I don't know how. I don't know why we'll get called out for it. Anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
Man, they can call us out because I'll call myself out. Jeez.
Wall them out. It's not like we're hiding anything, you know. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
Y'all keep this secret. We're streaming to, looks like 3,000 something people. We're trying to keep this a secret. But anyways, we're moving on to our live chat questions, and let's go ahead and jump into the Morse code, which was solved tonight by JP's Gone Fishing, Rumpelstiltskin, C. Fay, Mark Hodges, Cliff Simonson, Dark Warrior 137, Paul Schultz, and Earl Bernew. They said the only way the Russians can win the war is if they were anyone other than Russians. Slava LSA, Slava Ukraine, Igor, Jaga Jaga.
Y'all got that correct. It is right. That is exactly right. They could win the war if they were anyone but the Russians, because the Russians are incompetent. And so I thank y'all once again for deciphering that Morse code message on the 421st day of the war. And with that, y'all know what's up. We're moving on to the next one. But thank y'all for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and I would imagine, since we are going so late into the hour, that we'll probably take 3 live chat questions, right?
Oh, Matthew's trying to persuade me through verbal terms to only take 3. And we will sadly only be taking 3 tonight due to how long the stream is going. I'm sorry about that, but due to us having to grab the super chats from last night, also with the super chats from this night, combining them together, it has made us go overtime. So we'll only be able to answer 3. And so with that, we're on to the first one.
Good, because I am starving and I'm slowly dying and I'm being vanquished over here. Or
wait a minute,
I don't think that's the proper word either.
Please, Mr. Krabs, can you get me some food? I'm fiending.
You know, like that.
That's not what people say when they're hungry. That's what people say when they're like addicted to something.
Please, Mr. Krabs, can I have some ketamine? I'm fiending.
That was such a weird video game commercial. Anyway, so that we're on to the first one.
And the first one goes to Mr. Norton, who says, why doesn't the U.S. give any helicopters to Ukraine?
We have.
I think we have.
We gave them Mi-17s, and I believe we've also given them some Blackhawks. Although we
those
don't see
dangerous helicopters.
Yeah, those deadly dangerous helicopters. We gave them some. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, because we actually have given them a few helicopters. And with that, we are on to the second to last one.
And this one goes to Midget Hobbit, who says, apparently the UN Secretary General is mad at Zelensky because of the surprise medal ceremony. Can you guys confirm?
I cannot confirm that, unfortunately. I don't know why he would be unhappy with Zelensky over the medal ceremony. If it's the one that occurred in Avdiivka, because that's really a Ukrainian concern and not necessarily a NATO concern. And so with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can, at least with what we know right now. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night already. And so, who is the lucky last person to ask the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that viewer is George Orwell, who says, Enforcer, has anyone analyzed the effect of the war on the Russian economy?
A lot of people have, actually, and from what they're saying, it's having a detrimental effect on their economy. We haven't gotten any exact GDP figures and numbers yet, but it appears that Russians are getting less consumer goods. They are making less money. Their money is affording even less goods, so inflation is starting to skyrocket, and the Russian government also does not have enough money to pay for basic things like road infrastructure improvements or anything else like that. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can based off of what people have said about Russia, and with that, it is the end of tonight's stream. I thank everyone so much once again for watching tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure running tonight's news, and it's great to know that so many people have found this to be a quality source. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to hit the like. Also, make sure to comment, and make sure to subscribe, as this stream runs every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And with that, it's now time for us to round it out. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And, of course, Slava Ukraini.
And good night, Slava Ukraine. Here I'm Slava, and only the best people are in Ukraine. Good night.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького